Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of September 30th. We have a special, actually we have a lot of special treats here tonight. We're going to start off the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance from our own Troop 6. If you could all come forward and lead us in that Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Troop 6.
Thank you very much.
There are so many reasons why we live in such a great community. That's one. Another one is, as I said, there's lots of great things happening tonight. If you look at the sign over there next to the podium, it says Rhode Island Heart Safe Community. You're going to see that up in Bristol shortly because this community has achieved, and special kudos goes to our fire department, and you're going to hear more about this in a moment, but this community, Bristol, has achieved honor, distinction, and achievement by being a heart-safe community. And we have David Hiltz here and Todd Manny. David Hiltz is from the Heart Association, and Todd Manny is from the Health Department. And they're going to share why this is such a wonderful distinction. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Council and Mr. Administrator, and certainly residents of the town of Bristol. It's my honor and my privilege to be here tonight and announce that the town of Bristol has become Rhode Island's 12th heart-safe community. Heart-safe communities were first piloted in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and since 2007, the Rhode Island Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention Program at the Rhode Island Department of Health has worked collaboratively with the American Heart Association to develop this program in our state with the mission of increasing survival rates of Rhode Island who suffer sudden cardiac arrest, oftentimes as a result of a heart attack. The Heart Safe Community Program recognizes the efforts of local municipalities like here in Bristol to provide improved cardiac response and care by increasing the number of community members who are trained in cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, the availability of automatic external defibrillators like you have here in your council chambers, as well as training the EMTs of the town of Bristol in advanced cardiac life support. Dr. Alexander Scott, the director of the Rhode Island Department of Health, endorses the Heart Safe Community Program and the positive impacts this program has when responding to those who suffer from cardiovascular emergencies. Bristol has met the program's high standards, and as a community, rightly should celebrate this accomplishment and be congratulated on your hard work in increasing the chances of survival from people who suffer cardiac arrest through comprehensive and coordinated approach that the Heart Safe community fosters. I am honored to announce that the town of Bristol's Heart Safe Community designation, and to recognize this achievement, we have some traffic signs here tonight, and we also have decals that you can place on your emergency vehicles announcing to everyone who comes through Bristol of your Heart Safe designation. So on behalf of the Department of Health, on behalf of the Stroke Prevention Task Force and the Division of Emergency Medical Services, congratulations, strong work, and I'd like to ask the Chief to come up to get his sign, as well as Mr. Hiltz, who'd like to say hello as well from the American Heart Association.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be very brief. You can all hear me okay, right? My voice usually carries real well. Sudden cardiac arrest is the scourge of Western civilization. You know, over 300,000 individuals will have sudden cardiac arrest this year in the United States. About 1,000 of those will occur here in our great state of Rhode Island. And regretfully, somewhere around 20 to 25 of those are going to be right here in your community of Bristol. And when we talk about communities, we're talking about our own brothers, our own sisters, our moms, our dads, our own kids, valued members of the community. The Heart Safe Community Program is like a sign of hope, a hope of saving lives, and lives of people who are very important to us, in many cases their hearts are too young to die. So again, I'd like to say again, like Todd did, kudos to the police department, your fire department, and your entire community. And these signs will be a constant reminder of a sustained effort to unlock the life-saving potential that exists within this community. So again, well done, and congratulations to all of you.
That's great. Come on up, please.
Chairman, this is really due to the strong efforts of Battalion Chief Jim Vieira and Joe Texera, who you see wandering around the town, making sure all of our AEDs are up to snuff and everything else, and being one of our fine instructors for CPR. They're not all here tonight, but this is our team that we started with, and it is going strong, and we continue on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's great.
Congratulations and thank you. I think another round of applause is absolutely worth it.
Definitely,
Nice job.
definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good
Thank
to see
you.
Thank you
so
very
much. I mentioned there was a few wonderful things this evening. 2 days ago, today's the 30th, of course, 2 days ago, September 28th, this fine town is 335 years old. And our fine administrator is grabbing a little, look at that.
Yeah. Right.
So aren't you glad you came tonight? And you at home, you can come down. We'll make sure we save a piece for you. So,
She's looking good. 3:30.
oh, look at that.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
I won't let it fall, I promise. You ready? Can you get that, Mike? Everybody see that? I don't want to do too much there. So, nice.
That's
I'm going to take it right back, yeah. So, or I can sit here and pick on it.
nice job.
I think it should be a continuance because we haven't had the workshop.
Yes, please.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I know I can't do it as well as our town clerk, but just in brief, to remind all the residents and past residents of the town of Bristol that on the 12th day of January, 1680, by King Charles in his court at Whitehall, only to be at September 14th, 1680, at the General Court for New Plymouth, as a committee chosen by said court of Josiah Winslow, Thomas Hinckley, William Bradford, and James Cudworth, who had the tract of parcel of land commonly known by the name Monhope Neck and Papa Squash Neck, with all the islands lying near and about said neck, who herein and hereby granted unto said John Wally, Nathaniel Oliver, Nathaniel Byfield, and Stephen Burton, which these names ring true throughout our town, with past history and on our town common, and let us be mindful of all those years ago of how our town is precedent today.
Here, here.
Very good.
Nice job.
One more round of
Nice
applause
job.
for this
Nice
great town,
job.
please.
Nice job, buddy.
We have other good things, but we'll spread them out between the meeting here.
Between cake.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Clerk.
Did you want to take up that other
Yes,
proclamation?
absolutely. Yes. In fact, maybe we won't spread it out. We have another commendation here, and I need a motion, if we could, to move forward I-2 and also combine DD-1. DD-1's from our consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here's why we did that, because we have some fine people here from the East Bay Chamber of Commerce. Our DD1 is this, a proclamation. And this proclamation is to talk about, actually, a day coming up soon. Hello, Sedalia. Come on right up, please. This proclamation says that manufacturing has become an important contributor to the economy in the Northeast since the 1700s. Throughout our history, Bristol manufacturers have been well respected. And I'm going to skip right through to the end here and say that on October, well, because, you know, October 2nd is going to be National Manufacturing Day in the town of Bristol. And Stella, if you could share with us some more about what's going on and why is this important?
Well, what's going to happen is we're going to have a bus, and and we're going to be visiting Mac Plastics, Taylor Box in Warren, and Westfall Manufacturing. And the reason for this is so that we could, we're partnering with the Mount Hope High School to help our kids, today, especially those children that don't want to go to college and they need the skill the minute that they get out of school to find a job. And what perfect opportunity to partner with our local manufacturers and to give them the skills and the knowledge so when they graduate, they have a place to go and start a career from there.
It's fantastic.
So I'm very excited about this, and it is a great pleasure to receive this proclamation.
Why don't you come up so I can give this to you, if you would? Now, Sedalia, I don't want you to sit down yet because on our, if you wouldn't mind going back to the microphone, on our agenda for I-2 is what we just moved forward, and that was a request from you and the good people at the East Bay Chamber. Christine's right behind you there. Asking for our support from this council to support the Shop Small Saturday on November 21st, which is really important to say that your focus is not myopic. It is small business, medium business, manufacturing, and this is an important cause. Could you talk a little bit about that before we take the next step on this?
I want to have Christine elaborate a little
Wonderful.
more on this.
Thank you.
Good evening. And this holiday season, the East Bay Chamber of Commerce decided to get 2 trolleys that are going to be circulating the area of 114 from Bristol through Warren and then Barrington. And we're going to have several stops along this road for people to be able to patronize the downtown shops. The trolleys are free, and we're going to be encouraging shoppers to hop on them and find out what's in the next town over. We've got bags for these riders. They're going to be filled with incentives to, patronize our small businesses. And it's on Saturday, November 21st from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's no cost for anybody to participate. That includes businesses. So if they wanted to sign up and let everybody know what they're offering for that day, or even for just the holiday season, they would just have to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll include them. And they don't have to be a member of the chamber. They just have to be, in business.
As my colleague, Councilman Perala, likes to say, you get an extra 30 seconds for your commercial. How do businesses find you, and do you have to be on the trolley to take advantage of this?
Yes. And by that I mean you just have to use it like you would a RIPTA bus. So you get on it, you get a bag, you discover what's in Warren, and you discover what's in Barrington, and it'll take you all the way over there because they have shops that we don't, and vice versa. So we'll be getting shoppers who normally go to Barrington or shoppers who normally go to Warren. And you can find us at the website, eastbaychamberri.org. It has all of our contact information right there. You can even find us on Facebook and follow us that way. So that's basically
That's spectacular. It's my understanding that you're looking for support of $250 from the town of Bristol for this. Is that correct?
Should I have asked for more?
That's a great response. But I say again, it's my understanding that you're looking for $250. Is what's the pleasure of this council?
I move that we provide the $250 from our council contingency.
I'll second the motion. What a great way to shop local. What a great event. Fantastic.
So we have a motion and a second to support the $250 for Shop Small Saturday on November 21st. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask a quick question?
Certainly.
The 21st, is that the prelude to Christmas weekend?
Yes, we initially had it scheduled for Shop Small Saturday, the National Day of Shop Small on the 28th. But in order to get the Tri-Town, effect, get everybody on board, it had to be a day that was good for everyone.
So, and then the other thing, just for Sid, if I could just ask one quick comment on the manufacturing day. I know it's on Friday.
Right.
I know it came up, because I think I brought it up, or somebody brought it up at that meeting with the school department on the careers. But also, you may recall that a few years ago there was a Saturday where the marine trades industry opened up their manufacturing places, and I think it was really, really interesting. And I would just encourage you to maybe do something like this also on a weekend when that they could be open to the public, so we could all get an idea of all of the businesses that are going on here.
Great, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Perella, I know Dr. Andrade is scheduling something. He's going to be working in tandem with us for this spring
Okay,
to
good.
have something similar to that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if he wants to do it during the week or on the weekend, but we'll definitely encourage a weekend event to that extent.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, the first item on this evening's agenda, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the consent agenda.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes A1 and A2.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is an ordinance that was continued to this meeting, and the council will recall that we had a somewhat futile attempt at having a workshop. There was some responses, some conflicts with dates. I was going to suggest that, Mr. Chairman, you might want to schedule that workshop. I don't know if you want to consider first reading or if you want to do just a workshop before the first reading, because I think that's how it was supposed to flow. But this is also something that requires a zoning amendment, so there would have to be a public hearing called also.
Yes.
So with that said, due to the town clerk's finding of the workshop that we still have to have, I make a motion we continue this item for a first reading after the scheduled workshop. And once again, I commend you, Mr. Chairman, for this restrictive oversight of this change in our zoning ordinance for our town and protection, and also protects us against any state mandates going forward where we have more control over this topic at hand.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And if I could impose upon the council, maybe you could consult your calendars now so that we could schedule that workshop? Is that
Maybe we can do that
possible?
this evening at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, end of the meeting? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. The next item is ordinance 2000, and this is item, C2, ordinance 2015-17 as amended. This is the ordinance to consider certain changes to the ordinance regarding solid waste management, also known as curbside rubbish collection. This is the first reading. You have some additional information provided by the Assistant Town Solicitor, which includes some new rules and regulations.
I guess I'll go ahead and start off. 3 years ago, we started to embark on trying to raise our recycling rates, and here we are at a fork in the road. We have an ordinance before us that we could take a path to continue to go the way we're going and hit a $65 a ton rate and spend a lot of tax dollars by not changing our ways. We've tried, we've done a lot of education outreach, but the pendulum hasn't moved as much as we'd like. Or we could go down and review this ordinance. We're going to go over it tonight as a first reading and take steps and measures to save tax dollars, potentially $163,000 in tax dollars by implementing these 3 steps. So I'm choosing this ordinance. I think it's the right path to go down. The recycling committee who is here tonight, I'd like you guys just to stand up because you got a wonderful job on this and you've worked extremely hard on it. Come on, stand up. And I'd like to just give them a quick round of applause and thank them for all their help on this. So with that said, we've had this ordinance reviewed by Rhode Island Resource Recovery, and they have endorsed it. We've had Tony Texera take a look at the ordinance, and he is also shows his support and endorses it. And we've run it by Kevin McBride, the DPW director, and he also supports the execution of this ordinance. So with that said, I'd like to open it up to my colleagues to have any to express their concerns or their approval for it. And we have the chairman tonight, Keith Maloney, who can come up and field some questions. And we have also the DPW director, who can also field any questions about that you guys have on the ordinance. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start off with some positives. First one, probably midway in, and you can reference it or you don't have to, talks about the commercial solid waste permits. This is something that has been talked about for a while, and it's great to have this refocused on. It makes a whole lot of sense to remind everybody what this does is this takes the commercial waste would be trucks going in and dumping from work on a house, for example, and it separates the tonnage from our municipal waste. Is it the same thing being thrown out? Yes. But how things are accounted for, this actually would end up saving the town a lot of money by lowering the amount that we're throwing away in municipal waste, and by that we'd be upping our recycling rates just because of mere fact of numbers. That's a massive benefit, and it's a simple one to do, and it's also very appropriate, too. So I like that very much. I actually just highlighted something as a positive, too, is that I have people ask me this all the time. When can you put leaves out and when can't you put leaves out? Right? October 10th is when we do that, and April 15th is when we stop doing that. Or I'm sorry, April 15th is when we start picking it up again. So from October 10th for about 8 weeks is when you can put your leaves out. It's a good thing to know.
Really good thing. Yeah.
Now I have a couple of questions. I'm sure my colleagues do too. There's a section here, and I believe this carries over from the old ordinance, talking about private scavenging. It says Section 12, private scavenging on the street shall be prohibited. No person shall overhaul the contents of the receptacles of solid waste or recycling set up upon sidewalks. Mm-hmm. In English, you can't go through my recycle bin or my trash. Yeah. How do we, or what is proposed to enforce such a thing? How would we enforce such a thing? I'm sure I agree with it. I think it makes total sense. But how do we actually make sure that that happens?
I think that if you would observe such things, you should contact Director McBride and Town Administrator Texera, make them aware of it, and then they can pursue it and take the appropriate action.
Okay.
I don't think the mic is on.
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. I'll just get closer.
I had a conversation with Director McBride a couple days ago, and one of the things that came up through him was we were talking about separating our municipal waste from commercial waste, proving that the waste is actually from Bristol. How do we do such a thing? And I'm going to use your words, Kevin, if you don't mind. Kevin said, well, maybe we don't need to prove it. Maybe we flip it around and have the commercial disposer prove it. And I asked, well, how would you do such a thing? And I think from the example earlier of a building permit, maybe from a particular house would show where it's coming from. Why do we care? A couple of points have been brought up multiple times, but our cost of disposing the trash that we all create could go up $250,000. And if you say, well, how does that affect my tax rate? It doesn't do it that much, but I know that there's a million things we could use $250,000 for, as opposed to literally throwing it away. So, but proving that, I think this would be excellent, is make it the responsibility of the person, commercial, dumping, that, and make it obviously realistic, that you have to prove it was actually from Bristol.
I think that it's worth reinforcing that there are two documents that you're looking at, one of which is the ordinance, and then the second is the rules and regulations. All of that was mushed together into one document in its former existence. And what we've done is taken all the implementation steps, such as what you've just described, and put that in the rules and regulations section, which becomes the responsibility of our DPW director. It doesn't fall on the town council to administer that sort of thing. It gives him the right to do what is appropriate from the standpoint of his responsibilities in terms of the implementation of the ordinance, which I think makes a great deal of sense. So how Director McBride would go about proving that the commercial waste was from Bristol would be something of his own design, and I think a building permit certainly makes sense.
I'd like to address also we'll call it the white elephant in the room with the no bin, no barrel portion of this ordinance. I asked, again, having the conversation with Director McBride, I said, what happens if? What happens if? I try to put in my head, I think that the guys that pick up the trash have the worst job in the town. I don't want that job. When it's 95 degrees, what they have to deal with is it's horrendous.
Or 5 degrees.
Yeah, or 5 degrees. Thank you so much. The concern is that the ordinance speaks to one bin per household, and if you have a multifamily house, I don't personally want our guys figuring out how many people live in the home. Is the apartment rented? Is it not rented? So I'd like to, maybe you can elaborate on this a bit to say that I don't want them to be the police. We have a wonderful police department. I don't want them to have to be those people to say, how many people live here, what should I have, how many bins are out, all that kind of fun stuff. So could you speak to that a bit?
I don't think that is our intent at all. As much as we may describe the job as one of the worst jobs, the men who do this work are on the ball. They
Agreed.
know very well what they're doing.
Agreed.
They know how it works.
Yeah, they do.
They will very clearly understand when there's no bins with the barrels. It'll be very clear.
Right.
If there's 2 bins and 4 barrels, they're not going to not pick up 2 of the barrels. If there is a reasonable representation of barrels and bins, everything will get picked up.
Yeah.
They will use their own good judgment. I believe that Kevin is shaking his head appropriately to implement this, and no one is going to be standing there counting, well, there's 3 bins, and I need 3 barrels. No. Reasonableness applies here. Good common sense.
Compassion.
I've asked my questions.
Good questions.
I have, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I've been in support. As it's been said, if we do nothing, we're just going to stay the same, so any movement is towards the right direction. But other than the recycling part of this, I just commend the committee for, like you said, condensing an outdated ordinance, simplifying it, and making it more direct, so it actually helped us in our ordinance part of our charter. So I just thank you again.
Something else that I think deserves to be mentioned is the inclusion of a sunset clause, which, with this ordinance, we are suggesting that there be a 2-year sunset clause, meaning if on December the 31st of 2017, acknowledging that the implementation date for this ordinance is January 1 of 2016, so on 2 years later, December the 31st of 2017, it will expire unless the town council chooses to keep it in place. So this is something that is not written in stone today. It is something that we'll have the opportunity to observe, and we'll learn about things like how many bins, how many barrels, and what the pluses and minuses are of the whole program. Obviously, we'll stay in touch with Director McBride and see what he's learning and finding and what issues he's running into. And obviously, you then in 2 years can decide whether to keep it or not. And I hope all of you are still up there in 2 years.
I think that's an important factor because we can assess what it has done, if it increased or, modified and helped us
Exactly.
in this topic. And in the meantime, we could keep an eye on it, like we discussed in the past, of if there is a different direction or is there money allocated towards another direction we have discussed in the past of larger bins or automation or whatnot. We definitely will have the opportunity to do so.
Indeed.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So, yeah, I think the sunset clause is good because, one of the things that we do know is that a large percentage of people put their recycling bin out now, but they don't put enough stuff in it. I mean, I think that's a bigger issue than getting the bin out there. So we'll be able to see if it makes a difference. I had a question on the commercial, two questions. One on the commercial account. I believe at the last meeting, it may have been the workshop, you talked about the reasons for it, and it seemed like a pretty simple, no-brainer kind of thing. And then I asked you what the downsides were to it. And it basically shifts the costs, I think, back to the businesses, because they would be at a higher rate. And I basically support that, but I'm curious if there has been any analysis done on what that will do to the businesses involved, which are local contractors, roofers, because it seems to me that we talk a lot about supporting small business here, and I know there are several people in this room that if we're talking about a liquor license are the first to talk about how important it is to bring people into Bristol, but many of our residents work in these businesses, and I don't hear anybody talking about the impact on them. And so, has there been any analysis done on how much costs will be shifted over to them?
That hasn't been discussed in depth, only because the DPW has to go through an extensive process of identifying who the commercial waste haulers are. Right now, they're all interdispersed within the residentials, so we don't have a clear-cut number as to how many tons of waste are coming from the commercials. Once we would figure that out and then apply the additional fee, which is yet to be set, there will be a minor, in my opinion, a fee assessed for a commercial rate to justify the fact that they are major users. Then we can determine what that impact would be. I do think that I would look at it the other way. Regardless of how many there are, it's a relatively small percentage of our population. And those businesses are being advantaged by the fact that now the public, the resident, is paying for their services. So I would look at it in a slightly different way.
Well, my main point of bringing that up is that we hear a lot about our hospitality industry, and at least from the council's perspective of what comes before us. And, when we look at Explore Bristol, which, they want people to come in and explore Bristol, obviously, EDC, we don't hear a lot. We hear some about manufacturing, but we hear, like small business, Saturday, a lot of focus, again, on the retail, and not much focus on this other sector. And I don't think we should just lose sight of that. That is my main point of bringing this up. And because it does concern me that people are very vocal in certain specific sectors of our local economy, but very silent on others. So.
Mary, if I can just address that just a moment. So generally, the contractor, when a homeowner, for example, hires a contractor to do siding, and like in my case, we just had the house painted and we had two of the sides sided, and they put a couple of bagsters, the temporary bags on my driveway for the waste, and then they had a commercial hauler haul it out. I paid for that. That was the cost of doing the business. So generally, the commercial haulers will charge the homeowner for that added expense. It's not something that they incur. They're not going to absorb that cost.
But aren't there small businesses, I know plenty of them because I live near some of them, where they are bringing things to landfill on a regular basis themselves. Now, they're not commercial haulers. What rate would they be charged? Because they are bringing up that kind of waste.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really valid point, and I think to Director McBride's concern about how do you identify where it came from and is it commercial and all of that, and I think that his thought about using a building permit, that's one way of validating if that refuge came from Bristol and what it was.
Mm-hmm. And we have in here in the rules and regulations, the price for the permit shall be set at an annual by the director. So it would be, after we do our analysis and we start to figure out what we actually have, then it would make a logical sense as to what charge. But we obviously don't want to inhibit businesses or anything like that, but we need to first understand what we actually have as far as commercial waste.
Right. And we would, in that process, we would do a survey of the other towns that have this kind of a commercial waste program, and we would want to be competitive with them. So I think it will serve us well. As there were 5 large users that were identified for me when I was trying to gather this information, and as I remember, I think I mentioned it to you, those 5 deposited 750,000 pounds. 750 tons, 750 tons of waste in our landfill. That's significant. Now, I also would acknowledge that they're the big users, and that is not the other 90 that may be registered as commercial users, that they're at the same rate. We took the position that the others, which is, I think it's about 90 or 95, I think we estimate having 100 in the town, that they would probably have an equal number to those 5 large users. So if you take it that way, then the impact is relatively minor for minor deposits. People are going to have maybe a couple of tons as opposed to a lot of tons. So the impact as a cost factor should not be that dramatic to their business.
My other question is on the no bin, no barrel, and the rules are not yet all drafted. Am I right, Kevin? Or are they? Because I don't see them all in here. You'll be working on that once this is approved.
I believe that all the requirements are put together between the ordinance and the guidelines or rules and regulations, so it is included in there.
Yep.
Basically, as Mr. Maloney laid out, and I think Councilman Sweeney addressed early on about how the collection process would take place relative to the recycling bin versus the trash, and how we would approach that. And I think, we need to be pragmatic about it in the fact that, I went through the ordinance and I went through the rules and regulations. I actually made some comments and refinements and recommendations to the committee because I wanted to make sure that we could implement, as a department, could implement whatever is voted on by the council. I didn't want the council to make some sort of guideline that I could never fulfill.
Right.
And then even more importantly, it's important for the citizens of this community to be able to meet the requirements of that ordinance. And I don't think it's insurmountable, quite frankly. I think, we'll have a break-in period of a few weeks, and we'll work through that. But I don't think there's anything in that ordinance, Councilman, that we cannot execute as a department to support the intent.
Mary.
So my question is...
that line that you were looking for was C2A, page 3, right on the top.
My C2... I'll find it.
C2A, page 3.
Okay, I'll find a second. But I think you were here when I know to many it sounds like a trivial point, but, if there's, last winter was a seriously icy... I know of bins that were just literally iced in to their location. And what do you intend to do in those circumstances? Because I think there are cases where people do it 95% of the time, but there's an injury or there's a bad weather or something happens and it's not done, and then the trash just sits there. And that's not something you want to have happen either.
I'm not quite sure I fully understand what you mean by iced in. Are they iced in and they can't get them to the street? And if that's the case, we wouldn't pick them up anyway. So I'm not sure, I don't know how we would get to that. But if they were iced in at the sidewalk?
No, if they were iced in and the barrel couldn't come to the street, but you could bring your bag of trash out. So you wouldn't have your recyclables out, but you could have trash out.
Yeah, I think if they called us and we had a discussion I'm certain that we could work it out.
See, I think it can be. I'm concerned that there's no reference to any of that there, in here. So and I know that as soon as you start that, you can open a floodgate, so I mean, I think that's...
And that's the caution I have, is that, again, we don't want to set a precedent that we can't live with. If we say, well, hey, I can't get my barrel out, well, everybody calls up and says, I can't get my barrel out. Does that really make sense, and are we really executing the intent of the ordinance?
Well, I think that, with all due respect, I think that a lot of people who work on this, and it depends where you live, right? If you live in what I would call suburban Bristol, and you have your driveway, and you have a garage, then life is one way for you. If you live downtown here where you have, maybe a fair amount of distance to your backyard, and maybe you use your front door and you go around, but you don't really have necessarily a driveway, you have different conditions than you do in other parts of the community. So I just think that that's where I've seen issues arise. So short of keeping your recycling bin on everybody's front porch as you walk along the downtown area, I think there is potential for problems in bad weather. So
I would submit that there probably is, and it wouldn't just be, it would be across the board for the most part. There'd be many people who would have a tough time. And I would say that we'd have to cross that particular situation when we get to it and how we address it. And if there becomes a greater issue, then obviously I would come to the council and say, we need to reconsider this, or we need to rethink our ordinance. But I think at this point, from what I can tell, that we can execute this. I mean, I think that's the question the council has for me, generally speaking. Can you do this? Does it make sense?
If I may,
Sorry.
this has been done in other municipalities. I mean, we've been at this for how long? Either you do nothing, and then the policies is no bin, no barrel, or automation in larger barrels. That's what exists in the state. The statistics speak for itself. If we're not going to do one, we're going to do another. And like you just mentioned, if it has to be revised, I mean, I think we're looking at more negatives than positives. Either this is going to work, and we're going to see a positive from it, and then if it doesn't, then we go from there. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some negatives, and I just don't think we should look at it as, it's just, why don't we, how are we going to do the lawful side of it?
And I just want to remind my colleagues that there's like 14 other towns, I believe, that do no bin, no barrel, and it's worked out very, very well. So we're not creating the wheel here. The wheel's already been turning in 14 other towns, and it's worked out quite well for them. And I think it's a nice, gentle step for us. Sorry, go ahead.
I think if I could add, prior to my coming on board here recently, the percentage of recycle bins that were out, generally speaking, across the town, I think was somewhere around the 80% mark. People had it out. So I'm not so sure we're making a, you know what I mean? I don't think this is a major hurdle that we're trying to overcome. I honestly feel that my department can execute this ordinance.
Right.
And if I have problems, believe me, you'll be the first one to hear from me, But this is all about, can I execute? And the answer to every single member of this council unequivocally is yes.
The potential for, if we need to fix something, it'll be fixed in the rules and regulations, and that will be driven by Director McBride. When those rules and regulations change, they have to be brought to the council for your approval of the changes that are being made. So the ordinance will stay in place as it is, but the implementation, which I think is what Mary has spoken about, and how it's going to work, is something that Director McBride can, if he finds it to be not workable, given as it's written today, he can come back with a change. We can all have a different discussion.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to see things in rules and regulations. I think some of this doesn't belong, much of it doesn't belong in an ordinance, and that's true for many of our ordinances. So I understand the function of having the director having the ability to make the rules and regulations for any particular project.
And I do want to acknowledge both Bob Aldridge and Steve Katz for their work on the ordinance. They did the research and rewrote it and submitted it, and we hacked it up and they rewrote it several times. They did a Herculean job there.
So a couple of things. First, any person violating the provisions of this subsection shall in the first instance be warned, and shall in the case of any subsequent violation be solely responsible for. That suggests one time and you're out. I know two things very well. First, this council is quite reasonable. Second, I know that this DPW director is quite reasonable. This town administrator is quite reasonable. If issues arise that need to be addressed, we will address them. But that's not an easy way out from this. Why are we taking all the time and effort on this? Because if 80% of the people are actually doing it, we're trying to take that 20% and show them that it's a valuable next step. So in practice, what are we talking about? I was talking about somebody recently, this morning, about this, and I said, well, what if I don't have to put any recycling out that week? What do I do? The answer is you put out your blue bin. If there's nothing in it, your trash is going to get picked up. But what will happen, hopefully over time, is that you will notice there are more things that you can recycle than you currently are. Why do you care? The less we throw away, the less we pay. And the less we throw our money away, the more we can use it to do very important things like fix the roads and
all the road work that's going on right now.
Thank you. This doesn't fix the roads. This is one piece to get us there.
And it also opens us up for grants, as far as grant matching, and they'll allow us to get to the next step, too.
Is there any other discussion on this?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments about it. I think we should compliment the committee for hard work, and you certainly have done a good job to take a lot of the various rules that have controlled all this over the years and to codify them and state them better. But having said that, I detect that your motives here are principally two things. One, to increase the percentage of recycling, increase the tonnage of recycling, and secondly, financial advantages. As far as the first one goes, I think I'd like to first of all say that I think the people who we hire who pick up the trash deserve a lot of credit. Agreed. It's actually a very honorable occupation. It also is, I think, sort of a boot camp for service to the town in other respects for the DPW. If a kid only lasts a week picking up the rubbish, we don't want him to continue because he won't have a good career at DPW. So there's a big advantage to that. I'm continually impressed how hard they work. These trucks pull up, the brakes go on and squeal. The guys jump out, they grab these barrels, they dump them, and just as soon as they jump back on, the truck moves ahead. So that brings to me a concern that I don't want to see us, for very good reasons, change the system so that we don't continue to observe that high efficiency. If they've got to stop and discuss whether we should take this one or not, or leave that one, that's a problem. And maybe it would lead us eventually having a request from DPW, they need 3 packers instead of 2. You need more men than the ones you have. If that were the case, that would have a very serious impact on the finances, and it would be a negative impact much more than the positive impact of the new program. So I'll worry about that.
Well, to be honest with you, Halsey, I'd like to see us need more recycling equipment than we do packers. And that would show the success of the program town-wide. Yeah. If things head in the direction that we would like them, collectively would like them to go, we would see a large increase in the recycling and a net reduction in your trash.
Well, let me ask you this in the public forum. I've asked you somewhat this before, but how nearly fully consumed are the packers for the main rubbish?
They are at about 100% consumed daily. To the point, if I have a vehicle go down, it impacts what we can pick up in a day, as it happened the other day.
So, and how nearly are you to the limit in the case of recycling?
It's the both. We're right there now with the number of recycling. We have 2 trucks out on the road on recycling and 2 packers out on the road doing the trash. And if we have a breakdown, or more than one breakdown, and we can only put 1 recycling truck or 1 packer out, we have problems.
Yeah. Well, that is the reason for my concern about the viability of the no bin, no barrel. I don't want to see it eliminate this observed efficiency to the point where we have to end up having a lot more staff and more vehicles. If that were to happen, I think we'd be very sorry.
If I could address that, Halsey, before you leave it, because I think it's important. The no bin, no barrel assessment is done by those that are collecting the trash. And there is a driver of the packer who's responsible for that crew picking that trash. He's the guy that makes the assessment, not the guys throwing the stuff in the back of the truck.
Okay.
So therefore, the individual driving that vehicle is actually the crew chief, if you will, for that group of individuals collecting trash. Now, the recycling is different because it's one man, one truck. They do the picking individually. They don't do the assessment under this new ordinance.
Right.
So, and believe me, I ran this to ground because, as I said earlier, I was never going to support anything that we weren't going to be able to execute. And that was one of the first questions I had. I don't want my guys to go out there and be the trash police. But they also need to assess where we are recycling-wise, and they're the guys right out on the ground that see it. So in my mind, the implementation is the driver of the packer who makes the assessment that yay or nay, this is executable. We have a recycle bin out there or multiple bins out there, whatever the case may be, we pick this trash. Now, are we going to get into this implementation? It'll be a little rough road at the beginning, I'm sure, like any other change that we do. But I don't see it as insurmountable. I really don't.
Well, I appreciate that good spirit. Let me answer that. I appreciate that good spirit and your careful intention of how to make this work. Nevertheless, the process is going to slow down the pickups because somebody's got to decide and they've got to communicate to the guys in the barrels whether to take them or not.
Yeah, I think that's minimal. But
a few years ago, many years ago, the council was confronted with an idea to charge for rubbish pickup. Well, we turned that down because we didn't want people refusing to pay and then throwing their rubbish in the bushes somewhere. And in this case, there's a little bit of that. If for some reason a repeat offender doesn't have their bin out for a while, what are they going to do with the rubbish? So I just like to say that my feeling is that I'm more in favor of requesting and urging, as you've been doing very effectively. You've increased the recycling by 4 or 5%, which is good. I prefer that to big government coming down and putting their thumb on people and forcing them to do something that maybe that's not very convenient for them to do. So I'm not going to support this vote because I'm not for the no recycling, no pickup. And I've expressed that repeatedly here to you personally and to Tim and publicly. I think that part of this is an improvement. I'm also a little worried about the attempt to collect money from the businesses. Certainly, if you're bringing in as many tons as you say with 5 companies, they should pay. On the other hand, we've got a lot of small businesses in Bristol, bakeries, small restaurants, hardware stores, all kinds of small businesses, and I don't want us to do anything that interferes with their difficult time in these days to make a living. We've got to be careful about that. So I'm for part of this, but not enough of it that I can vote for it, so I'm going to vote against it.
So we're there. I think we've covered this topic. So what I'd like to do is ask this council for a motion, please.
While the director's here, I just want one clarification since Councilor Herreshoff brought up the small businesses. Is there already an assessment of some businesses in this town that get their rubbish picked up and some that have to pay for their rubbish to be picked up, part of their business plan?
yes, that's correct.
So
I don't know what the percentage is, Councilman, but I know that is in fact correct.
I think that's a question that should be before this council also. I don't think it's fair for one business owner that takes the responsibility of their business plan to know the incurred cost to have their rubbish removed versus other that gets picked up by the town that we're worried about our tipping fees of more trash. I don't want to sound disingenuous, but it either has to be cut or dry. That's what my point I'm making.
That's a concern of mine as we look to the future, Councilman, that the tipping fees are going to more than double here in less than 2 years, and that's, as the council president mentioned at the beginning, that's something that we need to consider going forward.
Right.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman.
1 second. I'd like a motion. And is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion that this constitutes the first reading for the solid waste management articles 1 through 4, recycling as amended.
Is there a second? Discussion.
In
Real quick.
response to Councilman Harrisoff, I would ask Director McBride, right now, when there is an issue at the pickup, the driver of the truck calls in to his office and gives him the information. The clerk there writes it down and has a note as to what the issue was, when it occurred. So that's already taking place. All we're going to be doing is implementing that to a broader degree. And then when they call in about their issue to complain to Director McBride or his staff, they have the facts and they can respond to it.
Right.
I mean, this is manageable. This is manageable. It will be managed. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the council?
Just from my perspective as a counselor in support of this, I'm not doing this on behalf of the residents to have a witch hunt for the rubbish police to dictate to the residents that we're going to be coming after you. This is just a change that we have to see in a positive direction. The only way you can understand that is to do that change.
Right.
Other than that, then you're never going to know. So
Exactly.
And we have, by the way, our biggest job may be ahead of us, because we have agreed that between the second reading, when it is finally approved, and January the 1st, our team is going to be out there trying to educate the people around town so that they know what this means and how to implement it for their own benefit.
So we're going to get that flyer in the mail that I suggested to every household?
We will get it in the mail, probably in the water bill.
So we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 3. All opposed?
Opposed.
Was that 3?
I'm going to abstain on the first reading, and
Okay, so we have a 3-1-4. 3-2-1-4. That's very difficult to say,
Reinforcement.
isn't that? Yes, 3 in favor, 1 against. I like that
think it's
better,
a-
and then 1 abstention.
It's exciting. Move forward.
Thank you for the clarity. This council appreciates the hard work done by the Recycling Committee. Thank you.
Excellent job, you guys.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, this is the second reading for adoption of Ordinance 2015-18. This was to eliminate the fee in the comprehensive schedule of fees for the 2 a.m. liquor license.
I'm excited to say that this should be very quick. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to adopt Ordinance 2015-18, Chapter 11, Fees and
I'll
Charges.
quickly second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is Ordinance 2015-19 as amended. This has to do with the so-called veterans tax exemptions. This is the first reading, and then you also have some communication from the tax assessor regarding the effect of this particular ordinance amendment.
I spent some time with Chris Belair in regards to this. I asked her for the C4A that you all saw.
Great. Thank you.
Connected in the back there. For clarity's sake, this ordinance change coincides with practice. Said another way, this ordinance will have no impact at all on the budget or assessments. This changes nothing because we're already doing this. We need the ordinance to align with our practice.
Great.
With that said, I make a motion that this constitutes the first reading of Ordinance 2015-19, Chapter 27, Taxation, Article 1.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is Ordinance 2015-20. This is basically in response to a request and police concurrence of a sort of an arrangement change at Our Lady of Mount Carmel School to allow for a no parking zone on High Street for a period of the school day. What also occurred at the same time was that it was observed that there was a few paragraphs in the ordinance that are outdated because they're talking about school days in places that no longer have school. So those are also being eliminated. This is the first reading of this ordinance.
Lou, I don't think you took enough credit there. It was actually Lou that found the second portion of this. This is wonderful. Thanks go out to Our Lady of Mount Carmel for saying that they don't need the space anymore and sharing where the pickup is actually happening right now. And the credit I speak of is Byfield, if I'm correct,
Byfield
and also
and St. Elizabeth.
St. Elizabeth's too. So Lou found that to make this one change altogether. So thank you, Lou.
Excellent.
Thank you, Lou.
Kids' safety is first, right? Mr. Chairman?
Motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance 2015-20, Chapter 16, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Section 16-147, restricted parking on school days, no parking 8 to 9 a.m., and remove no parking St. Elizabeth's School and Byfield School. Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, there is discussion. I'm sorry. Please, you wanted to share something. Please state your name for the record.
Al Vidro, Bristol, and
Welcome.
I am the chair of the Grounds and Buildings for Our Lady of Mount Carmel School. The only comment I wanted to do is to thank the police department and Sergeant Wozni for his help with the school. He has been very concerned about the safety and the welfare of what's going on. He worked with the principal very closely, and that's why we brought it to the attention to have this ordinance changed. So thank him, and thank the police department for helping out the school.
Thank you for the kind words. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the request for transfer of the Class BH, which is the hotel version, the intoxicating beverage license held by Bristol Harbor Inn, from Bristol Harbor Inn LLC to Donald S. McCall for BHI LLC, doing business also as Bristol Harbor Inn, same premises, new ownership. This would be to call for public hearing to be held on October 21st.
Make a motion, this calls for the public hearing on October 21st.
Second?
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, you have the petition of Gary French and Patricia Eng, 6 Sunset Road, request council consideration for a license to maintain certain town property. At this point, it's just for a call for public hearing. The matter would have to be advertised.
Make a motion, this is a call for public hearing on October 21st.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, now, would that be at the next council meeting? Next council meeting, I think, is on the 28th.
21st, actually. It is.
It is the 21st?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the petition of Emily Spinard and others requesting council not consider support of wetlands alteration application until flooding issues, etc., are adequately addressed. The council will recall that there was, at one point, the council was asked to send a letter of support, which it did not do. Ms. Spinard is asking that the council not send a letter of support until there's opportunity for the concerns to be vetted in the public arena.
Before there's any discussion on this, the solicitor and I had a conversation about this, and I'd ask if you could just kind of give us some guidelines on this.
Sure. At some point, I believe this matter will formally come before the council, and the council will be asked to take action one way or another. That hasn't happened yet, so since there's nothing actually before you at this time, my recommendation would be to assure the petitioners that you won't take any action one way or another until there's an opportunity for the public to be heard when, in fact, there is an application or a request that's in front of you.
So with that said, would this be a receive and file of their petition?
Right. I would receive and file or table it until such time as there's a request that comes before you with regard to this matter.
Okay. So before you do, and certainly as our solicitor just pointed out, there is nothing in front of us at this point in time. As also the solicitor pointed out, we were asked to write a letter of support, and this council chose not to. Not because we do or don't support this, is that we have nothing to support or not support. There's no formal application in front of us. Obviously, we're all aware of a potential hotel on Gooding Ave. But at this point in time, we have nothing that is to be considered, if you will, whether it's in front of our boards. I also understand that, obviously, through reading the petition, which was, let me commend you on being proactive on this. This actually puts you on the list, and if there is ever a conversation about this on the council level, obviously, you will be the first to know about it and be invited to be part of that conversation. But I just want to be clear that I don't want to go down any roads of the merits or the demerits of this particular project, because we don't have anything in front of us to talk or not talk about.
Right.
So please, and welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And if you could state your name for the record,
Yes,
please.
Ted Spinat, I'm at 35 Dartmouth Street, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about this petition.
Could you move closer to the mic, or the mic closer to you?
Okay. Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. So we understand that the town has not really looked at this proposed development because they have not gone through the town process at this time. What the applicant chose to do was to go to Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management and submit an application to alter freshwater wetlands. That is currently in DEM review, and they are going to come to you with a letter asking for your comment on that. Our feeling is that two things. One is that the applicant has told DEM that the town supports this proposed development. DEM is under the impression, in my conversations with them, that the town supports this development. Why are they under that impression? Because people claiming to represent the town have called DEM and have said that the town supports it. Second, in the applicant's own written submission to DEM, they have said the town supports this development. So no action on the part of the town council is action in support of this development. The second reason is that we have come before the council is that, quite frankly, my neighbors are afraid. They're afraid that a bad flooding situation which they have now is only going to get worse when the wetlands are filled in. And so they've asked me to take a look at that as a concerned resident, but also as a registered professional engineer. And I have given some very detailed reasons that I've included in the letter to the council so that the council can feel comfortable at this time to say, we're not in a position to support this development at this time because of the severe flooding issues that occur not only in my neighborhood, but the high school, Chestnut Street, and other neighborhoods. So if no one goes to DEM, if the town does not go to DEM and say to them, one, we're concerned about the Silver Creek flooding issue, and two, we cannot support this development at this time because we have not had the opportunity to look at it, and more importantly, who's ever indicating that we do support it is incorrect. And that's why we've asked during the public comment period, which I'm sure the solicitor will tell you, which is going to be coming up shortly, that the town does comment and just say what I have just said, that you can't support it at this time because of the flooding concerns.
Okay. Well, I think that's a perfectly reasonable request because we don't want misinformation going from the town to the state, and we're not against it, but we're not for it, and I think we should clarify that with a letter from the council, from the clerk, to DEM to say that the matter has come before us, and we now take the position that we haven't had a chance to study it, and we don't have any recommendation at this point.
But I would indicate, make sure that we talk about the flooding, because I think there's no question that the need for a hotel has been brought up. I think we're all familiar with that. I think it's come up as to why DEM has been taking a long time. I believe that if you look to a council meeting, maybe July-ish, that part was on. We've not taken an official position, but that's been on the agenda, and I believe our administrator has to try to find out where this was in the process. I think Explore Bristol, which And I don't know about our own EDC has talked about wanting another hotel, and this is one option. But I do think you raised a number of really good points to make sure that this is done correctly. And your summary, your ending paragraph, is absolutely, right on target, because, it's not to anybody's benefit to have flooding, and we've had this problem many, many times, where the neighbors are in front of the council, this council or subsequent council, and, saying, I'm flooded out. What is this? It's a drainage problem. And it's our doing. Many of these situations are our doing, if not the council, the planning board, or others that have allowed development, and DEMs, as a matter of fact, in many instances, which has allowed wetlands to be filled in. So I think you raised a number of valid points and summed it up very, very well as to, if we're going to go this route, we need to make sure that, while we can't guarantee that there's not going to be any problems, that all of the analysis has been done and checked and double-checked and looked at from different ways.
Right.
And because I know when you said this is the standard that it should be done by, I'm pretty sure I could imagine another engineer coming in and saying, well, yes, but there's also this other standard we could do or something. So I thank you for your very thoughtful comments and very comprehensive report to the council.
Thank you.
Well, I'm on record with major concerns for roads, drainage, and the hazard mitigation plan, and I know a lot of you in that neighborhood. I visited down that neighborhood of the existing problems that fall down Chestnut Street and the Silver Creek Plain. With that said, I also think it should be fair to understand that I respect you being here and I understand your concerns, but I'm more, concerned, is something being circumvented with the process? Because I believe in process, meaning, is the DEM done with their findings? Is this a special condition? I would like that to be conveyed to me and know that information and have a full understanding, because that's important to myself and my colleagues. But other than that, I feel, as it was stated by a solicitor, we can't set a precedent of not doing a due process with the right agencies, boards and commissions, and obviously the right to have public comment and dispute with the facts right in front of us, so we can make a good decision on this, because that's what I would like to do, and I'm sure my councilors would like to do that also. And I agree with my colleagues that I can't make a decision right now, because I don't have all that in front of me until it comes out of that process. But if there's a process that's being done that we don't know about, that's being circumvented, I think we should be aware.
So based on that and the information you've given us, I would like to move that the council communicate with the director of DEM, not to take any position on this, but to state that we have advice that some people may be mistakenly advising that the council is all for this project, whereas in fact our posture right now is that we don't have any position and we're awaiting studies and advice before we take one.
So are you saying we would be writing a letter to look for just a status on the analysis that they've done?
Yeah, I just like to write a letter to write a letter to DEM to say that their advice that the town is all for this has to be modified to a point where the council is aware of the proposal, but we haven't had any chance yet to take a position based on the data that needs to come to us.
And for the record, Mr. Chairman,
for discussion, go ahead.
Even if it's not a hotel, whatever would go there, I believe in a process, I believe in the assessment, and I believe in the findings that would impact our town, the neighborhoods, yourselves, our roads, and whatnot. So to me, it's not about a hotel. It's about that piece of property and going forward in the right manner that has to go through state and town regulations. So,
if I could just comment real quickly, I do appreciate what the council...
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
I'm sorry. I do appreciate what the council has spoken about and what they will do. The only concern, our additional concern, our major concern, is the flooding issue. And DEM is not aware of that flooding issue because of the submittals that have been submitted to the DEM.
I'm going to stop you right there, and here's why. Is that I would expect that you would want the same courtesy to refute something like that. There isn't even an applicant at this point in time. I don't have a project in front of us. I have nothing that says you're right or you're wrong. I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong, but I have nothing to do that, nor does this council. And I'm actually quite uncomfortable to write a letter saying that we're not kind of for something or neutral, because we haven't done anything. There isn't anything to write a letter on. I'm not putting my head in the sand. I'm not pretending this isn't being talked about. I don't mean it like that. But by the same token, I don't want to take action on something that doesn't need action at this point in time. If someone's speaking for this town, it's not this council. Fact. There is no letter. Let me also be clear, too, is that I'm for a hotel. Wait. Not at the expense of neighbors. Let's be really clear on that one, too. If this is done, as Councilman Stewart just mentioned, done correctly, hotel, business, whatever it happens to be, if it's done correctly and it improves the situation, and there's the potential of that happening, again, this has to be vetted through, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. But if it improves the situation, that's also a possibility, and we need to have this open dialogue, and we can't when it's one-sided like this. So I won't vote for the letter, not because I disagree with you. I have nothing to disagree with at this point in time. I need more information.
And I concur with
I'd like a clarification, though, and that is for Mike. How long is the comment period? The gentleman has said there's a comment period. It says here there's an application to alter freshwater wetlands. That does exist because, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, it's 45 days once it actually is in public comment period, correct?
That's correct.
And where is it in that?
It's not there yet.
It's not. We're not in that.
So
We're not there yet. That's the problem. This council is going to be asked. You get these DEM requests all the time. So when you get that request, my guess is the applicant will be here asking you to support, and the neighbors will be here with their petition.
We'll make sure that you know about it.
And then you'll be able to hear from both sides during that comment period, and you can make an informed decision, one way or the other.
And if I may, we as councils here tonight, you heard it firsthand, part of the record. That's not going to change our comment. I think that reflects the same as a letter that would go to the director of DEM. We're part of a record here tonight publicly in front of our residents stating what you wanted to hear. So that's why I don't see a need to put it in a letter form myself either.
But we're in discussion, so, and you have a couple of people behind you that would also like to speak.
Yeah. My only concern, though, again, as I said, is that that DEM is under the impression that the council supports this. And I don't know how, and I understand what you're saying, Councilman, that it's on the record, but how is that record going to be conveyed to them so they understand that the town does not support this at this time for all the reasons that we've talked about?
I think to the solicitor's point, which is that when the opportunity is there for public comment, we'll have this open dialogue, and you can at the end of that conversation, this council will decide if it is in support or not with the information in front of us, and if we don't have enough information, we will ask for more until we can make an informed decision.
But I don't understand the harm in doing a letter to just say the council has taken no formal position on this issue and is waiting for the official comment period. So if they're proceeding now, they're doing work proceeding under that assumption.
Of course. Another option is just take a copy of the minutes from tonight's meeting and bring them.
I would be absolutely for that.
I'm curious who's speaking on behalf of this council. That's what I'm wondering.
Right.
Because it's not us.
No.
That's an important question.
And I know that, and that's why we have a concern.
We share your concern, apparently. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Bob Dapont. I live at 36 Dartmouth Street. My concern is about the flooding.
Thank you.
I have a video on my phone. If I could approach the council and let the council see this video of how much water came into my yard from the last rainstorm.
What I would ask that you do is save that video, and we'll definitely speak about it in the comment section, the public hearing.
I had Mr. Stewart come down and look at the water problem
Was that
behind
today?
my yard.
You're talking about today? Or a prior
No,
rainstorm?
on that last storm. I also have many other other concerns about the flooding of the Silver Creek, of the project. A lot of that water from that, when it rains heavy, that ends up right in my backyard.
You sound like you've been there for a while. How long have you been there?
I've been there for about 22 years.
Okay.
So
you're quite familiar with the area?
Very, very.
Okay.
I also told DEM that if they wanted to actually see the wetlands, I would take them by the hand and walk them through the woods on a rainy day. But they said no. My concerns are also, they're talking 76 of the rooms in this. My concern is...
Again, I don't want to cut you short. I do want you to share information, but I have nothing specific to talk about.
I understand, but this is all things that you people, I think, should have to stand back and take a look at. It's like the sewer system. You're going to have 76 rooms, 76 toilets, showers, hand sinks, a kitchen, garbage disposal.
I don't have that information.
I understand.
I have no doubt that what you're sharing with me is... I have no reason to not believe you, but I don't have it.
That's all my concerns.
Okay. And we will definitely, as we've said a couple times, in open dialogue, in open session, if you will, public hearing portion, we will definitely have conversation and dialogue about it.
I mean, the last storm we had, the manhole on the Gooding Avenue bubbled up for like 3 weeks. That's how bad that wetland is. And I'd like to know, once they cover up 7 acres or 9 acres between a roof and a parking lot, where that water's going to end up. I know where it's going to end up, in my backyard.
Well, we definitely need to keep you included in the conversations going forward.
I've had it with the water problems. 22 years, I had to also bring in fill to my yard to pitch the land away so that the water wouldn't come onto my property.
Sure. Okay.
Enough of the water.
Thank you.
Thomas Mello, live on Dixon Avenue. I would just like to address the process, because I agree with a fair process. And I think if the town doesn't write a letter clarifying a position of no position, then you're actually taking a position. Because Councilman Calero, we just told you we support that. They're under the impression that Bristol is supporting this. So I totally appreciate your position that we're not taking a position until we have all the information.
Right.
But by not writing a letter saying we don't take any position on this is actually kind of supporting it, because you're letting an incorrect statement go forward. So I would ask you as a resident to actually impose this fair process and write the letter and endorse a letter that the town doesn't take a position, because that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to his comment, again, if there's something being circumvented, because I would have faith in an agency or our department heads that just because the DEM is hearing from somebody, the council supports this, that they're going to make a decision that's foul and out of process is concerning to me from a state agency. Because as a council or as DEM, there's a process that I stated, Mr. Chairman. And I'm hoping that under state regulation and laws, that they're following their process without going outside the scope and circumvent it just because a town says, we support this. So therefore, okay, well, let's change this.
Yeah.
Because I really think that would be against the law.
Right.
Welcome.
Good evening. Emily Spinard, 35 Dartmouth Street. It's more than hearsay or telephone conversations. My husband took copies of the application, and it's in black and white. Would you like it?
Not at this time. Again, I'm not going to...
The problem is, they are stating
Certainly.
that the town supports it. Now, my understanding of the town supporting it is the government. You're the government or the officials. So if they're under the impression that the town is supporting it, then it's going to put it in a different light.
So here's what we can do. The solicitor suggested an excellent point, which is we have minutes of this meeting. We'd be more than happy not to just have them there, but we'll share them with DEM so they can hear this dialogue, they can read the dialogue, they can watch it on video, in fact on Vimeo, I think, and hear this dialogue. So, and I think that will clarify more than what a letter would. And I am absolutely for that because this is open dialogue, and we were all stating exactly what we think. So, and they can hear it firsthand.
I appreciate it, and I hope it does clarify it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I would just, is it possible to, if one of us wants to see that we can get a copy or not? It's a public document, isn't it?
Well, it's in the, it's also in the petition that's in front of you, where it states that...
Oh, the quote.
It's cited, yes.
Yeah, it's cited in there. So it's already in front of you, what's being... So I guess the applicant, in its application, is saying the town's in support. It's not...
Can't hear you, Mike.
It's not a question of the applicant saying that council took a vote or that an administrator said anything. The applicant's simply making an assertion that the town supports this.
Well, I think it's more than just an assertion. I mean, you know, we all can, I'm not saying anybody did anything inappropriately or whatever, but there's a lot of people involved with this at different levels of government and different boards and commissions that I think it could very well be the case where someone has explicitly said the town supports this. Now, the town is not taking a vote, not taken a vote on it. So there is no official support of this project, which is absolutely true. But I can see where those comments could very, authoritatively been stated. So I don't think it's just some simple hearsay, oh yeah, I heard the council is in favor of it. So I don't think that a letter, now, you can send these minutes, I personally think a letter summarizing it in a paragraph is a whole lot easier for somebody at DEM who's busy to go through than to wade through, multiple pages of dialogue that we're going to have from minutes. However, I don't care if they send the minutes or not. No matter what you do, there's going to have to be a cover letter. You're not just going to, give them the minutes of Bristol Town Council meeting of September 30th and not say, please find and close, minutes from the meeting where the town had a discussion because it has not taken an official position. I don't know how you send something like that to whomever at DEM and not put something that tells you why you're sending it. So to me, there has to be a cover letter that accompanies that.
Okay.
In the original
do you take a position right now to support or not support this?
My suggestion on the letter is that you take that, we're going to say, the town has not taken an official position, and it's being, perhaps misinterpreted, and that we're waiting for the, item to be on our agenda with both sides represented, because we're always concerned about any project relating to flooding, and that is true. We are always concerned about flooding. And to be able to say, and even if you want to go further, to say, we're understanding that you're under this impression. But I'm not sure. I'm suggesting that we just clarify that we're not taking any position and have not taken a position, because they're implying that we've taken a position. We haven't taken a position.
Michael, who's implying? The applicant?
The applicant.
Okay, is the applicant here? Should we be even having this discussion?
That's why we stopped.
But if it's in their documentation that is at DEM, that's why I wanted to see what Mrs. Spinard had, then someone is saying that.
Well, I think the motion on the floor here that I seconded was to send a letter to DEM to maybe find out what the status is on their analysis, so we can make a founded, educated decision, and obviously keep the residents included so we can come up with the best decision possible. That's the only thing we can do at this point, I think.
So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that Halsey's motion?
Well, I think we could send the minutes, but as you say, probably need a two-sentence covering letter to say that we await their advice before we take the matter up.
Did you have a comment, Mike?
Yes, please. Michael Burns, Metacom Avenue. I think Mr. Stewart made a great point, that you're dealing with a fairly professional agency that is not going to take an applicant's sort of general statement as support by the town council. We have no idea, pure speculation, what impact this has on DEM at all. As you stated, you have nothing before you. So this speculation that this is driving DEM, I think, is just that, speculation. This process has been undergoing for 2 years almost. If, in fact, this rumor or this assertion by the applicant had any impact on DEM, it doesn't say much for how much weight the town council in Bristol has, or the town of Bristol has. It's had no impact on the process, negative or positive. It certainly hasn't speeded it up. We don't know whether actually what that hotel or whatever organization goes in there, or business goes in there, whether they make the situation better or worse. We just don't even know that now. So I think you're right. You have to wait until you get information from DEM on exactly what their requirements are of this particular business in terms of water diversion, water absorption. There's a whole host of issues there that might make it better, it might not make it worse.
Right.
And then the other side of this, it seems like it's on the other side of the hill from Silver Creek. Maybe it bleeds over, I'm not sure. But
So simply put, this council is not interested in hurting neighbors. We're not.
Yeah.
We will take this step we will take the steps as appropriate. We will listen. You will have an opportunity to speak, and we will listen, as we always do. As I started off an hour ago, this is a very reasonable council, and we will continue to be so.
I think Mr. Burns makes a great point. Nothing might even come in front of this council, because if it doesn't make it out of DEM, the applicant might abandon the whole project.
So we have a motion and a second. There's been discussion, and the motion is, Halsey, could you clarify the motion for us, please?
The motion is somewhat modified with your indulgence, is that we forward an excerpt from the minutes on this subject with a very brief covering letter to simply make the point that the council has not taken any official position on this matter, and we await the input of the DEM decision before we take it up.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, I thought it was already second.
Yeah, but because it was modified, I'm looking
Just
for
want
another second.
discussion. Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Is there any other wording that should be attached to that to not implicate us in a fashion that of an implied thing that isn't even in front of us?
Sure. Sure. I think what we can do is say that we await information from DEM on the status of the project and the public notice, and the public notice period, that's all. Instead of the decision.
Right.
Yeah. I think Lou's got it.
Okay. Anything else? That is much more comfortable for me.
Me too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is any opposed? Look at that.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the Public Service Appointment section. You have the Economic Development Commission. There's two positions available, one with term to expire in September 2018. You have Pamela Delaney, who is interested in reappointment.
Make a motion to reappoint Pamela Delaney.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And you also have on the Capital Project Commission, this would be to fill the unexpired term to expire in May 2018. The interest expressed by William Gano of 11 Smith Street. Mr. Gano is currently the alternate member.
I'd like to make a motion to elevate Mr. Gano from alternate to a full-time member of the Capital Project Commission, and thank him for his time on this commission with an expiration of 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, I would just make the point that I think this is a very, very important commission, because we have observed some projects in this town not going very smoothly forward. And I think it's very important that there be some people with professional experience in engineering, construction, and project management. We've interviewed Mr. Gano. Is he conversant with all those matters, do we know?
Very much so.
I'm very comfortable with him.
Well, I think that means a lot to me because we want to be darn sure that whoever's running these projects has the experience in the background.
Agreed.
To make it work.
Like you said, Counselor, we did interview him when he was interviewed initially for the Capital Project Commission.
That's right. Burnside.
Okay, well, good. Well, then we probably, after, if we do put him up, we should then also seek an alternate member.
So, we had a motion. Do we have a second on that one?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I would propose, Mr. Chairman, that we ask the clerk to advertise for an alternate member.
Thank you. And last but not least in regards to this, thank you to everyone who gives their time, effort, energy to all of our boards and commissions. I say this all the time. There's openings, as you've already heard. There's also Historic District Commission, Auxiliary Member, Personnel Board, Redevelopment, and the Christmas Festival Committee. If you're not sure what it takes to be on these boards, reach out to any of us, and we'd be more than happy to walk you through it, and we'd love to talk with you about it. Thank you very much.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, continued from July 29th, is the matter of the Metacom Avenue traffic study.
Archie, could you help us with the quiet factor, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the DOT is well aware of the suggestion that's in front of us. I know a town administrator has been reaching out, and we as a council actually have a very busy schedule, even with workshops we're trying to schedule. So with that said, on the agenda of the DOT with the administration, they are pretty busy right now. So I would feel comfortable with the conversations and what's on their plate right now to further this, maybe even to the first of the year, to have a dialogue, and with the busyness that's on our schedule, to have that formal workshop with the people that should be involved. That way we're not revisiting this, every meeting.
So true. I'm in full agreement, because I just went back on April 15th, the communication from Diane, and they did make a statement that the intention is to advertise for the project construction in December of this year. So I agree totally with you on that.
So if we could just continue this to the January meeting, wherever that falls, Mr. Clerk.
The first meeting in January? How's that?
January 6th.
That sounds great.
January 6th.
Thank you.
That's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item, continued from your last meeting, has to do with Richard Ruggiero's request for flashing lights at Guitarist School. You have a late item provided by the Superintendent of Schools indicating the school committee's willingness to collaborate with the town on a grant-finding project.
I spent some time speaking with the superintendent in regards to this. I'm going to ask the chief if you would mind weighing in on your findings on this. I know we have something written here, but I'd like to hear it and share it with everyone else if you would.
We're going to try to be brief, because I do have quite a bit of information here.
Maybe just the blue one then. Just the blue one then.
In the short and the long in this, as you're aware of, over the last 2 years or so, we have definitely improved the area there. Some signage, the crossing guard's been equipped with some equipment. We've listened to Mr. Ruggiero and spoke to faculty members there. I also spoke to the superintendent with regards to that. And as I had submitted to you earlier for flashing lights for the downtown area, that is something that obviously needs to be looked into and put into place at our earliest convenience. Washington Street, I believe we should consider a flashing light in the eastbound lane would be the only place for that. As you come in from Hope Street, I don't think that would be an unreasonable request. I think that's something that could be considered. I think we have appropriate signage there. As you know, there are police presence there in the morning, in the afternoon. but I'm not saying that a flashing light wouldn't help there. All the other directions, I don't see the need for that, only because you should be coming from a complete stop and then proceeding. However, coming from Hope Street onto to Washington, I will not disagree that vehicles at times may travel faster than they should be in that 20-mile-an-hour zone.
Okay. Well, this council very much appreciates and respects your input, and I'm not one to go against it. So I see the value of this. The school committee has said that they would work in concert with the town to find grant funding or other funding if grant funding is not successful. And I think that sounds appropriate to me. What do my colleagues think?
So with that said, would it be the concern of the funding mechanism, and when we come to that point, maybe we can address installing that light? Is that what we're discussing at this moment?
It would seem like we could refer it to the police chief, the administrator, and maybe the treasurer to look for funding sources, including or primarily grant, if one exists on that, and if not, what other possibilities exist at that point. And I would also suggest that there's been a lot of conversation about this. If you wouldn't mind, if we could be semi-expeditious on it. If there's options out there, let's take advantage. If not, let's take the next step and get the light in.
Yeah, sounds great. Safety is number one. And Chief, how much is the light? Just
I did not get a quote on that one. I sent you a quote for the other two that would be possibly installed on Hope Street.
Okay.
And I think they started somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000, and that was with the solar pack. And what we did there was reach out to DOT and ask who they use for vendors, so there wouldn't be any questions later on that we were putting lights in with someone that's not certified or acceptable from the state. So my recommendation would be that we reach out to again, I believe one of them is Rossi and the other one Otting, I don't have it in front of me, Otting, and maybe get them to give us a quote. And once we get a quote, we can submit it back to you and work to try to get a...
Yeah. That's how I was going to make my motion, is refer this to the administrator, the chief of police, and treasurer to act on the possibilities with that conversation. So move to your comments and then report back to the council.
May I suggest that we augment that and include in concert with the school committee?
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so it's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Did you want to share something? Please.
Good evening. I just would be remiss. I wanted to thank the chief, thank the town administrator, and thank the council for the time and effort that was put into this. I think it's the right decision. I've never been a greedy person. I wanted two. I'll take one, and I think it'll be great for the school, and I think it'll enhance the safety of the kids. And the chief is right. There's a big, big difference there now, and I think that the light, that flashing light will, sort of be the icing on top of the cake. But I wanted to thank all of you for the effort and time that you put into this.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Got it.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item H3. This was continued from your previous meeting. Has to do with the annual CDBG application. You have supplemental information provided by the Director of Community Development.
This is much better than what we had a couple of weeks ago. Gives us answers to questions that we had, so thank you. I know Diane's actually in Germany.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah, she's been there. She'll be back when? Tonight? Isn't October tomorrow? Is it Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest,
No?
yeah.
Okay.
We expect her at an executive session.
It's coming back for Bristol's Oktoberfest, maybe.
So there was a lot of questions at our last meeting of what the purpose was for X dollars. I know we have a few people here that represent some of the dollars here, or the request for the dollars here. What questions, if any, do my colleagues have?
Well, I think what I'd like to find out is if you were to get both the basic request and the supplementary one, that'll be quite a lot of money, maybe up to $300,000+. Is that going to be enough to complete this, or if not, what percentage of the need might be completed with those funds, in addition to what's already been done?
Merritt, would you state your name for the record?
Sure. My name is Merritt Meyer. I'm the president of Mosaico Business and Community Development Corporation. And the question's a complicated question. We're in the middle right now of making code compliance improvements, mainly fire code. And so far, we've made several $100,000. I estimate that it will take another $1 million or so to complete all of the code requirements, maybe a little more, $1.2 million. And this would help a great deal. It won't complete it. We've been told by the state that until the fire code is met fully in each of the building groups, and they'll do it building group by building group, that until that is done, we cannot rent the empty spaces in the given building group. And so that puts an enormous onus on us trying to operate the industrial park, while at the same time taking any excess rents and putting all of them into code improvements.
Well, let me just further ask, if I may, have any particular buildings been 100% completed in this regard?
There are 3 building groups, and at this point, none of them are fully completed. Building Group 1 is, I suppose, in terms of fire safety or life safety, we're at the 90% mark. In terms of fire suppression, let's say we haven't made any change to the existing system. There is a system there that was turned off by the previous owner, drained, and some of it meets code, but other parts of it don't meet code. And the same would be true in Building Group 2. In Building Group 2, we've got more than 50% of the building is code compliant. In terms of life safety, it's probably at the 80 to 90% mark. In terms of fire suppression, it's around 50%.
Well, now, just as a suggestion, even though, as you stated, they require multiple buildings to be taken care of before they allow use of any of them, wouldn't it be better to go at these building by building and do 100% of this building and then 100% of the next one? I don't understand. This has been so discouraging. I mean, going on more than 2 years. We heard 2 years ago that it was going to be $1 million. And what I find discouraging is we've spent quite a lot of money and it's still $1 million.
Remember, this is a preservation project. Not only do we have to meet the fire codes, we also have to meet the requirements of the Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission. And on top of that, we also have to meet the building code. Well, a lot of the roof in Group 2, for instance, a lot of the structure, the decking and the support structure for the roof had failed, but we didn't know how badly it had failed until we peeled back parts of the roof. Once we peeled back parts of the roof, the estimates of the architect were that we would have to replace 1,500 square feet of decking. It turned out that we had to replace triple that. And so we have encountered issues that were not readily evident at the beginning until you started peeling back some of the surface materials, and you could see greater degradation than was evident initially. For instance, in Building Group 2, somebody saw the 40,000 square foot space that was just sitting there. They made an attractive offer. the offer would help to pay for the improvements over a 2-year period. So we took money to make roof repairs, and then we repaired the suppression system and also the life safety systems. And the cost, which had originally been budgeted at a little under, but around $200,000, was more than double that. And so if we had tons of money, yes, it would be nice to do building group by building group, but we've got to respond to the market, we've got to respond to the terms of the grants that we were already given. Some of the grants are specifically related to individual building groups, and although it would be nice to take monies that were allocated for building group 2 and apply them to group 1, we can't do that. So let's say it's the progress we make is subject to the market, it's subject to different regulatory agencies, and it's subject to the monies we have available.
What's the timeline you're looking at for completing the fire suppression system? How much longer?
The fire suppression system will take at least another year. We have part of the problem there was we didn't know until maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago exactly how the industrial park was being fed. There are no adequate as-built drawings. The town doesn't have these drawings. The drawings the town has are inaccurate and incomplete. And the town 2 weeks ago was digging a hole because they were going to put in a new manhole. They went down, and what they found surprised everybody. They found an 8-inch cast iron pipe. They assume it's for water supply, but they have no idea what its function is, and it shows on no maps at all. So
Merritt, you're talking about, you said at least a year?
Yes,
Would it be? Is it fair to say between 1 year and 2 years?
I think that's fair. Yes,
Okay.
I think that's very fair.
Julie, I had a question for you, if you don't mind. There's part of these numbers. Does this, we'll call it, if the council says that we support this, that would make an assumption that any requirements that were made by the town were met. I don't,
Yes.
whether paperwork or otherwise.
Yes, this didn't supplant any other projects that were requested.
Excellent. Thank you.
If I just might comment, thank you, Merritt, because we hear it time and time again of the timetable, and Councilor Habershoff brings up valid points, because I agree with him. And your efforts, and that's why I want you to take away from here with whether it's past members, present members of your efforts in this community, because that is a massive undertaking. And I understand your plight, because here you are, with the means that you have accessible to you, but yet your rents have to be to market. You take down a wall, and it's not as simple as let's just replace that wall. You have to stay in the historic. So I get it. I've been there. But to the point of, I think the question is, where is the conclusion of this project on a timetable? Because you're trying your hardest to go with the market, do the fire suppression, and then you're still going to need, like you said, $700,000 even after this to complete it. In the meantime, you have to renovate these buildings while maintaining the existing buildings that you already renovated, because as time goes on, and it's just a trickle effect that, we feel for you, but I just feel the sustainability of, we have to have a conversation and work together as a community for that end site and conclusion of that park. And like you said, it's going to take millions and millions of dollars.
It will, but before it's all done, just to get it in so that it's fully code compliant, and also including the building codes, and do it in a way that is consistent with historic preservation. the cost will be over $3.5 million. And we're halfway there in terms of spending. So we're making an application to DEM so that we can resurface most of the site. We were invited to attend a session this afternoon up at DEM, and so that's going ahead. That would the amount we're seeking there is for $600,000, roughly, maybe over a 2-year period. So we've not only got to deal with the buildings, we also have to deal with hazardous materials that were left there by the previous owner. So it is a complicated process.
And that's why I was excited, and I hope we can go after more of it federally, is the Brownsfield grants, because that is a perfect site that should be number one for grants going forward federally. If we could get more out of that, that would be great.
We did, 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, the state did have sort of an offering for historic preservation tax credits, and there were more applicants than monies available. We happened to be one of the winners, and so we will probably get roughly $400,000 worth of tax credits, but they will become available as we complete different sections of the industrial park. So I think one way or the other, although the numbers are large, we're putting the pieces of financing together so we can get it done.
Is anyone approaching you for the space at all, or have any interest there?
We've had dozens of people approach us for space.
That's good news.
And the trouble is we have to say no, because until we get any given building group done, we can't do it.
Could you do a joint? They would come in and they would pay reduced rent, and but they would help with some of the cost of upkeeping that particular building. But I'm sure you've explored that.
We have, and we're open to any suggestion that makes sense.
Okay, good.
Well, I think it's a very important project because our other industrial parks are about filled up. We need more, and we potentially have more if these spaces could only be completed and put online to fill them up with new businesses. So we want to help you, but I think it's going to take some pretty aggressive and careful management, both to get the money and to try to do the work efficiently, and maybe only do what's necessary and nothing that's not necessary.
I think you're right on that.
Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the CDBG application for 2015.
And to authorize the administrator to sign on behalf of the town?
That's what I heard.
So moved. Thank you.
There's a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information, too.
Thank you, Lou.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item, also from the Director of Community Development, also continued from September 9th, is the draft natural hazard mitigation plan update.
I don't know if everybody had an opportunity to look through that.
Yeah, it was a great document. Talk about history and maps and flooding and...
I make a motion we adopt the natural hazard mitigation plan submitted by the Director of Community Development.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Ed?
I believe the motion is just, you're not adopting it this evening.
Forwarding it to the state.
To concur, to send it to FEMA and REMA for their review and approval. Once we get their review and approval, it will come back to the town, and this body will be able to formally adopt it.
Thank you for that correction, and I amend my motion to that.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Every now and then.
Thanks for that update.
The next item H5, is from the administrator regarding the last night concert revenue expenditure report.
If I may say, Julie, it seems to me that when we get to the budget time, we should try to put an item in for this to cover some of the DPW expenses, because we've already done that for the fire and
Yes,
police.
I agree.
Because if we could boost that a little bit, we wouldn't have near so much deficit here.
No, we would have more deficit, right? The DPW budget, the current overtime is charged to the DPW budget, not to the last night concert. So if the DPW is then charged to the last night concert, it's going to be more of a deficit, but it will be an accurate showing of the cost for putting on the last night concert.
Well, exactly. I'm really
Yeah,
for just
okay.
assigning the cost to the place where it's used.
To the concert, right.
Julie, grants are down, I noticed on this one, from pledged 5, no, it's 5, sorry, I'm looking at the 8/31/2014 fiscal year, 5,000, and then it goes fiscal year 16, 3,500. So is that just they're not available, or are they?
I'm going to defer to the administrator on this, because Cheryl, I think, is the one who handles all the grants for this.
He's a legislative.
I was trying to read. Could you please repeat the question?
Sure, I'm just trying to understand the grants section. For fiscal year 15, it's 5,000. For fiscal year 16, 3,500, so we're dropping. And I just wanted to know, are the grants not available as they used to be?
There was a reduction on that, yes.
There's a reduction.
It was a $5,000 previously, now it's $3,500, and at the present time, we have not received it. However, it's been pledged, and we will receive that amount.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, the thing that jumps at you in this is the fact that the sound system and staging is $27,195. Is that anything that we could try to do with less cost?
That's actually something that I had to chip away at it this year. They came back with $4,000 higher than what's stated here,
And
actually.
you did a good job to keep it level.
It was very simple. I just said to them, listen, the money is not budget. I don't have the money to pay you, so I'm going to have to give you what you received last year. He says, there's no well. That's just the way it goes.
Well, that's great, but further than that, is there any possibility that we look into the individual components of that charge and see if there's anything we can eliminate or reduce?
Actually, there is a conversation that I have to have with the folks that put together, to bring the sound and the staging. You are very correct. Because when he proposed the increase this year, I wasn't very happy at all with that. And I did say we need to visit as to how we actually, spend the money, and what are we doing in terms of allocations.
Are they the only company in town that could do this?
They are the group that works mostly with Philharmonica.
Well, only for some way you could reduce that cost, it would bring everything else well into line.
Well, he assured me he was willing to talk to me and possibly even procure some funding to assist us, which I was a little surprised to hear that, but I'll take any offers.
Tony, why is the police and DPW almost $1,000 higher than the prior year?
I was waiting for that. Yes. Actually, the two pieces. One has to do with the increases, in salaries. Okay, that was one. And the other, we had a bit of an issue with DPW. What happened was, it was not the department, but rather the folks in the setup. They required that we be there a little earlier, which we, after reviewing it between the director and I, we fully agreed that was not necessary, and it's not going to happen next year.
Okay. And then on the opening act, I mean, is it in the contract? I mean, is it necessary to have an opening act? Because I think you could just save that money.
There is some work being done on that one, actually, to eliminate that and actually bring someone who either do gratis or much cheaper. And it will be one of our local groups.
Oh, great. I was just thinking, yeah.
I've already approached them, to book them for next year.
Well, I certainly thank you for your report. Just for transparency purposes, though, because we come to this article on our budget time.
Yes.
And
We spent a long time on it, too.
On 2015, and I enjoy this night. I attend it every year. I think in the past, one of my comments was skewed as Mr. Stewart doesn't support the events anymore. I do. But I'm just making it a point, and I think the residents have to understand that in 2015, we took a loss of 5,400. This year, we took a loss of 9,100. So you can see how it's doubling, and I just want everyone to be aware of that. That's all.
So I think we need a motion to receive and file on this, unless there's other discussion.
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, let's see, where are we? The next one is from the Deputy Director, CRMC, regarding notice of public hearing to be held October 27th for the proposed amendment to their management procedures. That's I-1.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item is from Councilman Harrisoff regarding the Azevedo property.
The Azevedo property is that property that the town bought a couple of years ago, which is just adjacent to the fire station on Tim Street, and is a very important component of the town's property from the State Street Pier down to the Azevedo property, the fire station, Rockwell Park, the pier for the Prudence Island Ferry, and the smaller park for the fire station, fire department. So most of those are in all pretty good condition that we're proud of, with the exception of the Azevedo property. And I'm frequently asked by Bristol people and visitors, what is the problem with those shabby, broken down buildings there? And I know some research has been done on this. In particular, I believe there's a report, which I haven't read entirely, but I've heard about, from the Rhode Island State Historical Society. And I'm told that it recommends that we upgrade one of the buildings at least, and that they sort of like the idea that we keep them, but I don't think they've made an adamant demand that we keep the buildings. So I just would say that I think enough time has passed that we ought to address this problem. My own view is that the two buildings should be torn down and the whole property should be re-landscaped into a park. I've even suggested it might be called DeWolf Park, because the DeWolf family were the shipping people who did so much activity to make that waterfront and much of the town of Bristol come alive. So I'd just like to ask if the council might agree that we should undertake to do something to alleviate the situation.
I think the administrator would like to hopefully shed some light on this.
Yes, I do. If you recall, we did award a bid to GMI Architects to do a feasibility study, and actually the cost is being incurred by the State Historic Commission. They awarded us a grant that's paying for that. The architects actually are in the final phase right now, and they will have a presentation for the council in October. And also they need to forward that same information to the state so that we can get reimbursed for the feasibility study. But obviously you will have an opportunity, the architects will be here, and they'll have drawings, they'll have all the information that they've acquired so far.
You expect that'll be on the 21st?
It will be.
Okay. Well, that's
yes.
good.
I spoke with them, and they assured me that they definitely will have a presentation ready for the council to the feasibility study.
Well, I think that's very
findings.
positive. On the other hand, we've got to be careful that architects are usually defensive of buildings. We've got to look at the entire issue from our standpoint.
Right. But it'll be interesting because it'll be a presentation to you. I'll give you an opportunity to discuss or share any light on their report.
Good.
And their findings.
It would seem appropriate that we continue this to our next meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that. That was a pretty quick response. Already, you got your answer.
I know.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
We're on a roll.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Also from Councilman Harrisoff regarding the rededication of the Harrisoff Marine Museum flagpole on October 3rd.
Yes, many of you may recall that way back in the year 2000, the Harrisdorf Marine Museum received the donation of a tall mast. And then we obtained a drawing that showed the proportions of a proper pole with the topmast yard and gaff, and we built that. And we believe it became the tallest active flagpole in the state of Rhode Island. The only thing that went wrong was that after some 15 years, we found a lot of the fabric was rotted. So we went ahead and procured a new flagpole. This time it's fiberglass. Doesn't look quite as nice from my detail standpoint, but it looks pretty good, and it has all the same proportions. The original one was dedicated to the memory of Carlton J. Pinero, who was the curator of the Harrisdorf Marine Museum for many years. He passed an untimely period, and we're going to continue to hold up Carlton as a beloved curator of the museum, and we're going to rededicate this on Saturday at 2 p.m. if there's no hurricane.
There better
I'd
not
like to
be.
invite the council to come. I know that there's another big event for the fire department the same day, but maybe some of us can do both things and come down for this dedication, which won't last very long, and we'd love to have you come and join with us in doing that, because we think that everything in Bristol should be the best, and if we have the tallest flagpole, that's one more thing we've done right.
That's right. What a nice way.
Halsey, am I correct? Am I correct in saying that Carlton Pinero also designed the Rhode Island quarter? Didn't he do the back of the quarter? Or am I? Did he have anything to do with the back of the Rhode Island quarter?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he did. You know, that brings up an interesting thing. That occurred.
I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to know if he actually.
Carlton and I both thought that was a great thing to do, and we submitted a picture to the National Mint, and they came back with a very nice drawing, which also included the Newport Bridge, which Senator Chafee wanted because he was the senator in Washington who proposed the whole idea of state quarters. The only problem was this yacht, built at the Harrisdorf Company in 1903, was so big, with a rig that's 200 feet above the air, that it could not have sailed under the bridge. So I thought about that, and I thought maybe I'd inform the Mint of the problem. And then I thought about it a second time, and I realized that would be very stupid because they'd end up not showing a Bristol boat, but some other little boat that fit under the bridge. So I never said a word. And now around the world, there are millions of Rhode Island quarters with a great yacht sailing toward a bridge under which it could not pass.
It's a great story.
It was worth it. Can I have a motion to receive and file this?
So moved.
Second. With thanks to Council Habershaw for your invitation. Thank you very much.
And the great story at the end. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's dangerous when you remind me of things in the past. Isn't it?
I apologize. I won't do so in the future.
Well, I hope you keep going.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of Town Council, it is item I-5. This is from the Commissioners of the Cemeteries regarding a proposed price increase for monument foundations. It would be the council's obligation to approve this price increase per the town code.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I spoke with the chairman of the North and East Burial Grounds Commission and also the groundskeeper. You're all furbished with the old rates, the new proposed rates, in a comparison to our neighboring town of Barrington with their rates that they're doing this comparison to. And the increase in pricing keeps the cemetery costs down while doing improvements to existing and future headstones. This will also build up their fund. And they're not a commission that could go after grants, so 50% will go to the commission and 50% will go to the installation of this new foundation rate, and this will give families more flexibility with price options and not to feel rushed while they're making these decisions, to have a better dialogue. But with these items, I would suggest that we continue this item to the next meeting. That way my colleagues can really do a comparison and maybe have further questions. They said that there would be more more than willing to come to the next meeting if need be, if councilors have questions pertaining to this matter.
Thank you, Councilor Stewart.
Thank you. Lou, just a process question. Is this just an approval, or does this require a public hearing?
All you do is approve it. It's your responsibility to approve it as you see fit, but they recommend you approve. It's not part of the comprehensive schedule of fees or anything like that. It just says that, basically, if you read that little, I think I provided a little section, it just says that they provide a recommendation to you and you approve it.
Well, the question is this council comfortable approving it as it is, or would we like to continue it? But Julie wanted to add something real quick?
I just want to give them a little bit of a shout out if I can, because that commission, when I first came on board, that fund was a little bit in trouble. They didn't have a really good handle on their revenues and expenses, and we were looking at it and trying to figure out what was happening there and why we weren't seeing why we were seeing negative returns kind of year over year. And they've developed a really robust budget, modeling it after the town's budget, and they review it every month at the Cemetery Commission meetings, and they've really taken an active role in their finances. And they had talked about increasing the fees, but they weren't comfortable doing it until they fully understood all of their finances. And so I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out, because they've done a lot of work on it, and so this has come with a lot of thought and foresight.
So you believe that this has been vetted thoroughly and it's appropriate?
Yes, and I think they're doing a great job, so I just wanted to mention it.
And let me just add that the current rates go back to 2003. We're here in 2000.
12 years old.
13 years.
12
so,
years, yeah.
But I just wanted to afford my colleagues, if they needed more time to vet this process. But I certainly reviewed it. And
is there a motion?
I'd make a
So I
motion.
withdraw my original motion. And if you would like to make a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the schedule of fees for the North and East Burial Ground. It looks like it is, in line with Barrington. In some cases, it's the same. Some cases, it's less, as I did a quick comparison. And I don't think there are too many things that we can buy today that are the same price as they were 12 years ago. So.
Right. Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Stewart. Thank you for the shout-out, Julie. That's very nice.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is from the Administrator requesting an executive session, which I'm assuming the Council would like to take up at the conclusion of the public
please.
agenda. And then following that, we have a couple of bids. The first is... Wow. So I read it from my tablet. Okay. Yep, no, I got it. Okay, the first is on the exterior wayfinding signage. It is from the, there are 5 bids. This is bid number 833-2. This was a rebid. You have 5 bids submitted. The first is from Bunting Graphics of Verona, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $154,909.09. The next from L&H Signs Incorporated of Reading, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $150,150. The next from Harmon Signs Incorporated of Toledo, Ohio, in the amount of $112,723. The next from Color Ad Incorporated of Manassas, Virginia, in the amount of $208,344. And the last from Highway Safety Systems Incorporated of Rockland, Massachusetts, in the amount of $101,300.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what did we budget for this?
Yeah, what did we? Just a reminder.
I want to say it was $27,000 or something. Yeah.
Wait a second.
Good evening, Ed Tanner. Go ahead.
Good evening. This is a small piece of the wayfinding project, what we're calling Phase 1. We tried to focus on the downtown, the parking, and some street signs, and some downtown wayfinding signs, and kind of work our way out. So,
but would you agree that this was
these bids?
Was this a bit higher than what we initially thought?
It was a bit higher.
Again?
Than what we, yes.
Yeah?
Again. Yes.
Okay.
Well, the first bid we had a pretty short timeline, and we only received one bidder. So we extended it out, and we got 5 bids. But The numbers are a bit deceiving. So we just got them today, and the numbers are a bit deceiving because there's a lot of ad alternates. There's prices for installation versus non-installation. There's a lot of different variables. So we can work with the contract. So our consultant KMA Designs, who helped us design the wayfinding signs that you all saw a year or so ago. They're helping us evaluate the bids because that's what they do, is the signs. So we intentionally put in several different variables so that if the prices did come in high, there's ways we can cut the price back. So the bottom line number you're seeing here is, lump sum, do everything, manufacture the signs, install the signs, soup to nuts. But there's ways to get these numbers down. That we'll be evaluating with our consultant.
How down?
No, the one thing that, the signs are all nice and pretty, and they look nice, and they'll look uniform, but if this is just phase one of I forget how many phases, but I don't think I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not sure it's worth like $200,000 or $225,000 or more dollars to do signage across the, I can think of a whole lot of other projects I'd rather do with that kind of money. So I think it is surprising to see like how high these are. Like you said, they may be, different, and when you look at, taking this out, taking that out, whatever, but I think the whole project probably shouldn't cost this much money, never mind just phase one.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can tell you that we've spent a lot of time on this project, and I've shopped these signs around several local manufacturers as well. There's, we do have the one prototype in front of the Quinta Gamelin Community Center that we had made here in Bristol, using their exact specs to the T to see what it would look like and how much it would cost. And then if we did that on a larger scale, could we see some savings? So we've analyzed this many different ways, and we've value engineered the design of the sign down with the materials and the paint, and using vinyl lettering versus painting, and we've tried to get the price down as low as we can. So this is a good eye-opener, and this is a good, there's 5 bids here. We just got them this afternoon, so I haven't really had a chance to go through them to get that, to see where we can save. Again, and most of these companies are large sign companies that are not in Rhode Island. They're all from outside of New England, except for one. But they would sub the installation to somebody. So we're going to work. We'll evaluate it.
What I'd be interested in knowing from those add-ons and the breakdown of their prices, for me, what's really important is getting those street signs that have both, that are labeled on both sides. In that what we budgeted, I would be curious to know if that's part of the first phase of
those
this.
are actually broken out.
Oh, awesome.
As a separate line item. So inside this number, we can pick and choose and value to stick. So yeah, the numbers are
So should we
quite
continue?
large, but we'll.
The administrator wanted to share something.
Yes, just very quickly. Yesterday, I had the opportunity I received an invitation from the President of Portugal, so I was pretty honored about that, to visit with him in Newark, New Jersey. And interesting enough, I was driven there, by a chauffeur, by bus. There was actually a group of 25 of us from Rhode Island. And it was interesting because as we moving through the different areas, one of them specifically they must have used the wayfinding. It was interesting to see the consistency of the signage throughout that community, that particular area. And actually, I took a couple pictures, didn't come out too good, so I'm not going to show you. But it was interesting for me to observe that, But I hear you loud and clear. This is not the numbers that we want to work with. Although Ed, I can assure you that Ed's put in a great effort into this here to make sure that, one, we can address the signs that's been a concern to us for many years, but also to see how do we break it down and actually phase in some of this, but not at this cost. So we are very cognizant of that.
Thank you.
So what's this council's pleasure?
Well, usually we would refer this to the administrator and the department to act in the best interest of the community. I'm not sure if it would be appropriate to add in this case to come back to us, like with whatever you are going to do, because
Absolutely.
I think, like I said, I don't want to see us ending up spending $200,000 or $300,000 on signage over, X number of years. So I imagine whoever, I imagine whoever gets this contract might get some sort of, there must be something in there about an extension or whatever. If somebody's going to do these and have all that set up already done, they would probably do phase 2. So I think we really have to be careful on what it is that we're doing and what the ultimate overall cost will be.
So
I will second that referral, but also I second the request that the administrator come back to us with a tentative decision.
So you're going to refer it for a recommendation?
Perfect. So that was the motion. I heard a second. Is there any other discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, and then we have RFP MPA1 for professional services for the renovations at the town hall. We have the RFPs submitted. The first from the Brewster Thornton Group of Architects for the design, $57,755, and construction administration of $17,110. And the second from Vision 3 Architects, both firms of Providence, the design amount of $45,535 and $13,290 for administrative construction.
So inform this council, remind us how much was proposed and booked.
This project it started out with kind of many pieces, and we were trying to do a lot of the work in-house, and we sort of quickly realized that it was a project that's much bigger than we originally thought. One that everybody is aware of is our HVAC system. That alone is a pretty big piece. But also the technology piece, where originally we were talking about the need for getting what they call switches off the walls, these masses of wires on our walls, getting them to do a direct route right into our server room, and so that was sort of an immediate technology need to help our network and issues we are having. But then that became part of a bigger conversation about the needs of the council and the audiovisual and the media, and it's all connected. So between that, the carpentry needs, as far as if we're going to do something different with the council setup, and obviously the paint and window treatments and those things. So in the end, we decided that what we really needed was a professional design for the town hall. I mean, this is a business. When you come in, and, you want it to look professional, and we'll always, we're not looking for something that's going to be, state of the art, super high tech, over the top.
Appropriate for town
But
use.
we are looking for simple, well designed, appropriate, functional.
Is these numbers how the bids came back, are they in line with what we thought they were going to be? Or are they in the ballpark, if you will?
They were in the ballpark with what I thought they were going to be.
Okay.
I mean, when you put all those pieces together, one thing that we did, I mean, we really, I'll say, expressed strongly that we are not looking, like, they will not be putting pictures of the Bristol Town Hall on their brochures. This is not that project.
Gotcha.
And so...
We appreciate that. Good. Okay.
Well, Julie, does this include the idea of having a couple of screens, one that the council can see and one that the visitors can see?
Yes, we wanted ideas from them on how we could, we walked them through all of Town Hall. We showed them, the spaces. We showed them where the chairs are set up, said that they should probably come to a council meeting, although they don't think they did. But just to see the layout and understand the needs of the town and the council. So they got a pretty good idea of what we're looking for. Based on that, we also said that, what we'd really like is to be able to see things, with separate costs attached to them. If an entire new HVAC system is I don't know, a couple $100,000 or some outrageous amount, we're going to need to think about how important that is right now. We need to weigh all of these projects against our other infrastructure projects, roads and everything else. So,
Kevin, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just want to kind of highlight a lot of the things that Julie covered. I worked for an architectural engineering firm that was a full-service firm that included mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and all of those facets. When we started looking at the components of this facility, that's when it became very clear that we did need a professional to help us through the process, because they have to be coordinated and synchronized. Whether we do them all at the beginning and implement everything that they come up with, or whether we do it over time, is irrelevant but we really need to make sure they're synchronized. You don't want to go dropping in a brand-new HVAC system, and then other components of the design are in conflict with that. So that was the big piece that fell out of that, and Julie and I worked pretty hard putting together the RFP, and then Lou jumped in to help us because his folks are working within here, and we're serving our community, and we can't shut things down as we go through the improvements. So there's a lot of synchronization that needs to take place. So I think the bids came in where we thought they would be, and quite frankly, I'm pretty pleased with it personally. And as I said, once we start going through the design development process, we did ask them to provide some cost estimates as we go through so that we could get a better handle on that. And again, we laid it out saying that, look, we're going to be honest with you right up front. We're not looking for a portfolio design here that you're going to put out in a brochure in the future because we just can't afford it. But we need to maintain the functional simplicity of the whole project.
Kevin, since you have the mic, the two-part of the bid, the design is pretty obvious in where the cost is, but it says construction administration. That's what you speak of in the making sure that the processes work correctly.
Well, not only that, through the construction element, who's going to answer the request for information? Who's going to go through the shop drawing review to make sure it conforms to the design and meets the specifications, and all those elements as we take it into the field and build it.
Okay. So that's like a site manager, pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much, but it's not a day-to-day thing. They come down once a week for a project meeting or whatever. I mean, again, we're not building a new full structure with all the individual parts, but they will be involved to answer any of the technical questions through that construction phase of it, which we would need.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to refer this to administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next we have the periodic report that's provided by Discover Newport. That's item K1.
I'd like to thank Discover Newport and make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and I'm just going to add a point of discussion. I attend, and I guess I'm the liaison for the East Bay Chamber of Commerce, and Evan Smith was there and kind of gave us some less than positive information, is that the visitor center here is being, in his words, is underutilized. It was a 5-year test subject, and at the end of the 5 years, they're not seeing it utilized to the level that they'd like to see. It represents the East Bay. It's not just Bristol. It's Bristol, Warren, and Barrington, and honestly, I did not know that, but it makes sense. But he said that it's being underutilized. His budget has been cut by $300,000 this year, and this is one of the things that he would like to see cut. I don't agree with that, and I told him that. I don't believe necessarily that the amount of people is what you're looking for, more of the quality. He did express some concerns about signage in front, and he was not the only one to say that. It was kind of a best-kept secret in some ways. We may, if this continues, or potentially to keep it continuing, we may want to revisit the signage issue to make it more visible. I think we all know it's there, but maybe if you're not from the area, which of course is the point behind the visitor center, to help you point your way and to find our local businesses, find our local areas like Colt State Park and others that are just absolutely spectacular. So I know the report doesn't really say that, and I wanted to share that with my colleagues and say that this may be a concern for us, and it's something that I believe is valuable, if it is, we maybe need to make some changes with signage.
But didn't you send something, somebody sent something out to us not long ago? Was it you, Tony? Or, I mean, I heard this before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think we got it
We
somewhere.
heard the statistics on the...
Or about closing this location, unless it was when he was here before, maybe, or whatever. But this year, I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad, that, like, I don't know what you call them, not a flag, but one of those, like, freestanding, almost like a sail kind of thing, that was
Banners,
out there.
yeah.
And,
banner.
but, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's on, like, every... if there's maps or wherever, like visitor center, or on, like, if you go online, that people know there's one. I don't know in advance if they were planning a trip, and they know they want to stop there.
He actually did stop in, and he spoke with me briefly, and right along those lines, what happened is that this year the numbers were much less than it has been in the past. And this year, they had also 2 paid staff members there, or 2 staff employees, I should say, 2 paid staff employees, unlike in the past was just volunteers. So there is some skepticism as to whether the numbers were accurately kept in the past compared with now with the current 2 employees. But it's difficult to judge that.
Can't imagine you'd have
But I mean,
business for 2
certainly,
employees.
I concur with the chair that it is important for us to maintain a point of reference here, for our visitors. There's no question about that. Otherwise, they run into all the shops looking for directions, and certainly that's not the way to go.
Thank you for conveying that, yeah.
That's something we can visit together going forward.
And Tony, and especially with our Maritime Center, we're going to be seeing a lot more boaters, I'm sure, and they're going to be looking for direction, so making sure those packets are available. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is from the solicitor regarding the mediation of the regional school district.
I just provided you all with a memo wherein I had letting you know that the mediation with regard to this litigation at the Supreme Court level is taking place on October 27th, and that Nathan Caloro, as president of the council, will be there representing the town. I will be giving you further update on this issue when we get into executive session.
Is that judge the same judge that's made the decision thus far?
Oh, no. No.
Somebody else?
Definitely someone else.
Good news.
And then I would ask, we are going to go into executive session on that matter, but I would ask at this point if the council would add to their agenda an executive session item under litigation, Hopeworth Community Association versus Town of Bristol, otherwise known as Clipper Way, if you could.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
That's what.
Could you mention it because they'll be able to vote?
Oh,
because it's not a regular act.
Okay, so Lou, I was going to provide this to him anyhow. The reason that you're adding this is because there's a court order which is ordering the council to make a decision on or before October 1st. So therefore, ordinarily, you'd need 48 hours notice before you voted on a matter. This will fall into one of the categories of emergency because we're under court order. So I'm going to be asking you in executive session to take a vote on this particular case as to whether or not you're willing to settle it pursuant to the terms that have been agreed upon between the parties. And we will make this court order, which was signed by Judge Leach today, available for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
Couple things. As we started off the meeting, congratulations again to everyone involved with making this a heart-safe community. It's just absolutely spectacular. It takes the next step. I know that we have that at our ball fields. We have that with our police department. We have that with our fire department. It's my understanding that a couple, I believe the sergeants have them in their vehicles. So the goal with the Heart Safe program is that it's a moment away, and truly every moment counts with something like that. So it is not an easy thing to achieve, and hats off to all that got us there, because we're in a better place because of it. Pledge of Allegiance and reverence for the flag. This council and this town very much has a lot of reverence for the flag, and I would ask that we would send something out to our boards and commissions that just to remind them to start all of their meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. They may be doing it already, and that's great, but if they're not, I want to make sure that, and I think my colleagues would agree, that all of our meetings, our boards and commissions would start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Housekeeping issue. I've had a couple of residents that watch TV at home and watch the council meeting say that sometimes we talk over each other. I know that happens with politicians, but I would ask my colleagues maybe, and I didn't bring it up at the beginning of the meeting, I figured we'd wait till the end, is that if you could turn your microphone off if you're not speaking, and that way, because I want to make sure that, and I know you do too, that everyone is heard. Every one of us here, including the public, is important to hear what they say. See? And I don't want anybody, and I know you don't either, talking over you. So if you could turn your mic off when you're not speaking, that'll help a little bit. I signed, and so did Julie, and I think Tony, some documents yesterday from the RI Infrastructure Bank, which just saved the town about $90,000 or so, 46 and 46, if my memory is right. I like my number better. I'm going to go with mine. It saved the town a lot of money, and we did nothing but refinance loans. And this is in addition to the loans that we just refinanced. This was actually from the urging of the RI Infrastructure Bank. They are sharing the savings. They actually split it with us. So wonderful. We made money without, well, a couple of signatures, and off we go with savings.
Low rates.
That's just absolutely spectacular when that happens. Just a reminder that it is, as we heard earlier, too, it's Shop Small Saturday, and that was November 21st. And if you want some more information on that, just go on the East Bay Chamber of Commerce website. You can get a little bit more about that. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sweeney.
I just wanted to remind everybody, if you don't have anything to do on October 30th, Bristol Blooms, which is a nonprofit group that beautifies downtown Bristol with the hanging plants, they're going to be doing a fundraiser. It's called Broom Palooza, and it's eat, drink, and be scary, and it's going to be at Linden Place on October 30th. You can wear your hat, your broom, bring your broom. Costumes are optional. It's $50, and again, it's going to be October 30th from 6 to 10 p.m., so definitely go ahead and mark your calendar. Come on down. It's a great cause. And again, all the money goes to beautifying Bristol in the summer. Just makes us a great place. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Ms. Perella.
Yes, speaking about the anniversary of the town's founding, I just wanted to bring up a sore subject. I hate to do it, but I know the trees that we had talked about a few years ago, the one on this northwest corner, like right behind Wally School, just seems to me to be much worse. Every time I walk by there, it just looks like pretty pathetic.
Behind the wall?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. And so I wanted to call that to your attention, to maybe take a look. It just looks that way to me. I know, if I remember correctly, when we did that tour a few years ago, I thought there was a different one that was the worst one, but right now I think this one is pretty bad. So, I don't know what we can do with it. I know that we looked at this before, what the solutions were, but pretty much the side that faces the street is pretty much dead, it looks to me. So, and I guess the only other thing I have is just to urge people to be safe and be prepared in case we do get a hurricane coming this weekend, or a tropical storm. I think we've been lulled into fabulous weather and thinking, wow, we got through a whole season without hardly any rain or anything, and so sort of making up for it. And that's all I have.
Mr. Stewart.
If you haven't driven around town, there are some sections, and I'm sure the administrator will expound on this, about the road program, especially on Baloo Boulevard. Discussions with the administrator dealing with Cardi and a couple of hiccups that we're addressing going forward, and we just want to address it and have it done right, especially with the cold weather coming. I just would ask that we stay on top of them, especially after they grade, that we do it in a timely fashion, and it's conveyed to them so it could come out proper with the type of weather like you had suggested that we're going to be experiencing. So that's good news going forward with that. As Councilwoman Perella said, just take care of our elderly and have a plan. It's always good to be prepared, just in case. And thirdly, we talk about another item time and time again, and it's frustrating because I think we're trying to figure out what to do because of the timetable according to the weekend. with the trash barrels downtown. It seems they get picked up on Friday, and Saturday morning, when I go to the post office, they're just overflowing. And I scratch my head saying, how can this happen over a Friday night? So it's just disheartening because, Saturday is very robust with people coming into Bristol, whether they be tourists or going to breakfast, and we have this trash incident. So just something that we have to continue looking into. Other than that, everyone be safe with the weather, and thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Everyone looking at home, thank Mike Davis and our Sergeant of Arms, Archie Martins. It's been a long night. Thank you.
Mr. Harrisaw.
I'd just like to speak a little bit about advanced planning. I know the administrator and his staff and the police chief and the fire chief are all thinking about this hurricane that might come, and I think you have developed over the years a pretty good plan, and I hope that you're going to be ready for it if it does come, because we don't know yet. And also, last spring I wrote a rather lengthy set of suggestions about snow removal, because I thought at the time that we were expending a lot of effort, but we weren't using our brains in deciding quite what to do. For example, I think that when you're removing snow, you shouldn't have your whole crew all worn out, so they can't come by on the sunny afternoon after a storm and sweep it when it's easy. So I would just like to ask you, Tony, if you would do me the favor of conveying that to a new, very good director of DPW. He may not want any suggestions from me, but on the other hand, maybe he would like to consider some of those ideas. If you can't find it, I can give you another copy. Thank you.
You don't want me to respond? Okay. No. Just very quickly, yes. That's something that, I've had a conversation over that, possibly work shifts rather than have everybody there on all the hands on deck at once.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Town Administrator, agenda items?
Very quickly, paving. Thank you, Councilman Stewart. You're very correct. Things are moving along right now on Baloo Boulevard as well as the side roads of Butterworth. And there is a little bit of a hiccup, but you're right, it's being addressed, and I know Director McBride has been very instrumental to make sure that things start to they follow the rules and the agreement that they had with the town in order to complete the work timely. Also, there's gas connections that are happening, specifically on Union Street. The street's been blocked because there is a lot of individual, it's not just the main, but the individual connections that are being made on Union Street right now. So if folks have seen that, they've done that on Pleasant Street. Now they're doing it on Union Street as well. So you'll see a continuation of that work for a period of time. In terms of preparation for this weekend, I couldn't agree more heartily with all of you that we need to be prepared. And in fact, to that, I'm holding a meeting tomorrow with the department heads that play the pivotal role on what needs to be done throughout the storm. If any of our residents have any concerns and they're not quite sure who to contact, the best option is to call the police department and they'll make the proper referral. So I definitely, when they're having an issue with sewer, they can't get hold of someone, or they're having some other issue, just call the police department and they will make the proper referral to the proper department as necessary, or make the right contact.
Tony, our new website has Code Red, right? So to the residents of Bristol, if you take a moment, go on our website, it'll walk you through how to sign up for Code Red, and it's a great opportunity for, through our police department, fire department, administrator, to convey issues, concerns, and all you have to do is sign up. It's free. It's very easy to use, and you can get emails or text messages. For example, it'll say that, I'm making this up, but State Street is closed. It's not really, but for example, and it would be closed until this or then, or this is why it's closed, so you can plan accordingly for those things. So if you haven't gone on the website, go on and sign up for Code Red, and gives us, the town, an opportunity to reach out to you.
So true. That certainly is very appropriate to do it. And we will use it to the extent that it's needed, as you pointed out, but we'll be very cautious not to overuse it.
So the motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A2 litigation regarding the Bristol Warren Regional School District and Clipper Way.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.